Well, we are live again.
Okay, so as I am struggling with my technical difficulties here of, my new monitor. I mean, look, I had a little bitty monitor and, I could have been considered a peon with it. And so then I went to the extreme and I said, you know what? I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to get a big monitor and I can put
Hmm.
everything on there. Well,
Did you
I'm
buy
not,
a neck? Did you buy a neck brace with the monitor?
I mean, good grief. So now, I mean, it's like I'm having to look up at the stars at Starlink flying across the sky. And
Yeah, I know it. We get to see
everybody's
the underside of your chin and beard now.
I
That's
know.
great.
So if everybody's looking at me and you're all thinking, what's wrong with him? Has he got a crick in his neck or something? Or is he, is got a pull muscle or something? No, I'm freaking looking at this stupid monitor that's too big and it's got all the information like way up high.
Well, there's a favorite word of mine that I have really, really tried not to use in a long time, and I certainly don't want to use against you, Duke, because I consider you a friend. Um, but it should have come to the realization that bigger is not always better.
I mean, look, at 5 foot 5 inches, I mean, I know I am exceeding, expectations of people, but I got to tell you, if I had a friend that was a tech person, they could have counseled me to say, hey, if you don't have a crick in your neck, you're going to have one with that big old freaking monitor. Don't do that.
If only you knew somebody to call and ask these sorts of things. Look, I want to share. All right, so before we go to the commercials, speaking of that, I want to share with you what I meant with the shout out to the Bossier City Police Department. Did I
Oh,
tell you
oh,
about my adventure?
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Yeah, so I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I
Hmm.
mean, so did you get the benefit of cell block 5 or, general
No,
confinement? I'm just
it.
I'm just curious.
I didn't even get cuffs slapped on me this time. They didn't even call me a smartass this time. Smart aleck, excuse me, folks. No, it was actually a great experience, and most of my interactions with the Bossier City Police have
Well,
actually been positive.
did you eat the bologna or not?
Well, I got to tell you this story. What had happened was, I went down to Barry Butler's laundromat, our good friend Barry Butler, his
Oh,
daughter's
now
laundromat,
now
actually.
you're gonna drag Barry in this. I
Yes, I'm going to
y
drag him kicking
you
and
know
screaming.
you have no limits, do you?
I have no limits. But wait, this story is great. So, and anyway, we were working on QuickBooks on his computer, blah blah blah, or his daughter's computer at her laundromat down there, which was at the intersection of Swan Lake and Shed Road. And I parked my truck right there in the parking lot on the end. Make a long story short, it was about 8:30, actually probably 8:45 ish. When I walked out to my truck, I noticed this car just kind of drifting across the parking lot, and I thought somebody forgot to put their car in park, and it missed my truck by like inches. Of course, it was just drifting, like a mile an hour. It hopped up over the curb. This is during all that rain. Hopped up over that curb and hit the concrete base of the light pole. And I thought, wait a minute, there looks like somebody's in there. I could see their silhouette. The windows were
No,
all fogged
I,
up.
I know,
Yeah.
no, I know what you really said. You said, "Oh crap, this is going to be freaking another bill from Manchac. I got to jump to attention here."
Oh yeah, especially when he hit the light pole. But I think it was not a city-owned deal. So anyway, I go up there and I kind of rap on the window, hey, because I thought, well, hey, maybe this guy's having, or whoever, well, I couldn't tell if it was male or female, was having a stroke or heart attack or something like that. And I bang on the window and I can kind of see the silhouette of the head look over at me, and they dropped it in drive and gunned it, started slinging mud and rocks everywhere, and then put it in reverse. And I thought they were going to back into my truck and hit it in drive again, and they hit the pole and bounced off of it and out into Shed Road and turned left like headed towards Cope and cut off 3 or 4 cars or cars running all over the road. They ran up on the sidewalk and off, and all this was at a speed of a grand total of about 10 miles an hour.
And
So,
you wasn't going to take that. I know
oh
you.
no, not
You're
especially
not
not if they
having.
slung rocks and mud all over me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no snitch, but they were obviously it was either a medical issue or most likely drunk. And so I hopped in my truck. dial 911. So they dispatch me into Bossier PD, and so I'm following this guy. We zigzag all over the road. He gets on 220. He's all over running people off the road. I mean, spun out on the exit ramp over by Silver Star.
Wait a minute. Hold up a second.
Yeah.
I just had an epiphany here.
Okay.
Have you been talking to my wife? Because this
No,
sounds like a
not.
story that she would have.
No, this actually happened.
Okay.
What I said, what had happened was, that makes
carry on, because I feel like I've heard this story before. But anyway, go ahead.
So to start narrowing the story down, he gets off the exit ramp, he cuts off, almost runs a couple of cars off. He spun out and got off the exit ramp in the grass and mud, thought he was going to be stuck there, and Bossier PD was going to catch up because they had an officer en route from wherever. He gets to the T right there where Highway 80 is. It's two-lane turn lane. And he does the turn fine, or puts his blinker on, actually. But again, we're all in slow motion. This is like 5 to 10 miles an hour. And anyway, he runs a couple of cars off in the other lanes. Finally, he gets off Highway 80 and goes around, and just like 5 miles an hour, goes around the very backside, the southeast corner of Louisiana Downs, as far back as you can drive back there. Well, by then, Bossier PD had showed up, so I was waving to the officer, got his attention. This is all at 9 o'clock at night. And so anyway, he got him stopped, got him cuffed, guy was drunk. Second officer shows up, I guess as a supervisor or whatever. And I won't say who it was, but I gave my license information. He goes, I thought you'd be a little taller.
What does he mean? You're about 5'5". What are you? 5'5", 5'6"?
Maybe 5'7" if I stand on my tiptoes. But anyway,
I mean, look, you're normal.
Yeah.
Anybody over 5'5", they're a freak. And if you're over 6 foot, you're a genetic freak. I mean,
of course,
look,
I had on my Bossier
science.
watch. I had on my Bossier watch hat, and he says,
Okay.
he says, we're big fans of the show, so keep up the good work. Anyway, as it turns out, to wrap that story up, I may have to testify in court because they didn't get him on a public road. It was on private, but of course I witnessed all that. So that was my good deed for the day.
Okay, now look, you can't be calling out Bossier City cops, because the next thing you know, somebody's going to be public information requests who the officer was involved in that said, hey, we're big fans of the show, and then they're going to get a demotion to a patrol officer or something on night shift. You just screwed somebody. Come on, man.
I gotta watch. See, I try to give them a little credit there, and I just, It's because of the good old boys. They always spoil the party. But anyway, I'm not going to say who it was. So it wasn't well, I'll just say, we'll leave it at that. Anyway, it was a good experience. All right, what are we? 8 minutes in. Let's go to the intro and the break real quick. Folks, for those of you that are new, we're at about 140, 150 people. We're going to take about a 3-minute break. That lets you get something to drink, good stiff drink, a little bit of popcorn or whatever you want. Tag your friends, share it out. That gives people plenty of time to see the notifications for the show. We will be right back, and pretty quickly we're going to get with our guest here in just a few minutes. So here we go, Mr. Lowry.
A lot of the back office on the politicians that they think walk on water, they would be shocked. There's an old wound from a knife in my back that just is giving me heck lately, and it's just really irritating, so I have to kind of wiggle around a little bit.
Well, I've not heard my name in stable or Baton Rouge in stable in the same sentence in a long time.
I titled it A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boys.
Just, they feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
Some Republicans as well believe that government has the answers. And let me tell y'all something. I don't know anything government does well. Nothing.
Aren't there laws that say that you have public meetings so that the public can have accountability of their elected officials?
They're making a little bit of progress, but I would definitely have to give the race to Caddo Parish right now.
I don't know. Is there anybody from Plain Dealing watching, you think?
As a member of the media, I'm very concerned about what I've just heard.
Did you or did you not requisition some money to fight against this or for it?
We hired a lobbyist, and it cost us $15,000. We were opposed to HB 630.
So for this week, folks, the cockroach of the week, according to Bossier Watch and Duke Lowry and Rex Moncrief, is
Raymond Cruz legislative assistant, Allie Feaster Smith. Thank you, Allie.
Well, I'm not thinking Star Wars at all. I'm thinking zombie apocalypse.
No way.
Okay,
It was not
okay.
David. You know it wasn't David Montgomery. David
Okay.
ain't going to jump off in there with Chris. He ain't
Okay.
gonna do it. He'd as soon spit on him as he would even look at him. Man, this is a Mickey D's Krispy Kreme week. Didn't you know? Who's paying y'all? And if you're driving on the roads, are you safe?
It's on the road, yeah.
Well, I know you're on the road, but I mean, is this all folks coming from the border down there?
Yeah, it's going to border. It's actually going to Mexico, the buses.
Doesn't mean they interpret it the same way that I do. For instance, the Second Amendment. I take it very literally. That's been interpreted different ways in the court system all the way up to SCOTUS. Yeah, that's only going to cause more division that he claims he doesn't want to cause. And it's only going to cause more suspicion.
We're still right now combined on both pages and YouTube at 264 people watching. That is amazing, folks. Coleman Project, the Walker Place deal, through conscious, shocking action. The purpose of their actions was to stop plaintiffs, being the UL Coleman and associated groups not, from developing Walker Place. But here's the key thing, which in turn would enrich sitting city council members Scott Irwin and David Montgomery Jr.
You hit the button. Does that mean that people are like seeing us sitting here talking and chatting?
In theory, you know, it's an every week thing. We got to double check and make sure it's like a miracle any of this actually works. This Bossier Watch live broadcast is brought to you by the Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 25 years in the mortgage business. Pelican Training and Consulting. Reach out to Julie Ferris. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And folks sharing information and watching out for Bossier. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. And here we are again. We are back. We've made it through another intro. 100 and, what are we on? Show 190 plus a few. So
Show 190, and we're still talking about Bossier. How is it that you can have 190 shows and there's still content to talk about Bossier City?
it's a never-ending thing. Hey, I got something new to show you. You want to see this? Watch this. Through the magic of screens, and wait a minute, it's even better. Watch this. Hear that? Ooh,
Okay.
It's lightsaber sounds, Mr.
Right.
Lowry.
Now you see, I got see me and you. People may not realize this. They think that me and you are like peas and carrots, right? Okay,
Right.
but the truth of the matter is, and folk, you know, people who watch the show, they know and they've seen that we're not always on the exact same page, and we have a little bit of a
Disagree
disagreement.
every now and then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Healthy
but
debate.
what I'm going to tell you is, Rutro, you know, I got to tell you, you're not always the king of the
no.
hill, so I want you to just share my screen.
Oh, this is always dangerous, folks.
Let me
Oh.
zoom in here just a little bit. What do we have going on here?
Look at who's getting fancy now that he's learning a little bit of graphics work. We're having our
Now-
own light. Wait, let me get the noise in there. Duke, I am your father.
Rex, your fancy electronic gadgets will never turn me. Dude, you'll submit to the power of my digital media.
You're killing me, but that's actually pretty good. I gotta admit. All right.
Now, why
So-
did I do that? I did that because, I mean, look, you put this post out for this little show, and you said this thing, Darth Jerkovich.
Yes. Look, it's even in the graphic behind us. I've got it kind of low key down there, but look, and I'll just say this, and we'll go ahead and bring our guest on here in just about a minute or so. But if you remember, and I think you're a Star Wars fan, right? It was like a defining movie of my childhood. But
I gotta tell you, I'm torn between Star Trek and Star Wars. I was into both of them, but they're
not
not the
me.
same, and it's
No,
two
they're
different groups.
they're not me. I was more of a Star Wars fan. It's not that I dislike Star Trek, but if you remember, in the end, I mean, Vader kills a few million people, blowing up the planet and all that sort of thing. But forgiving all that, he actually did. Well, and he cut off Luke's hand, so we have to kind of get around that. But he ended up killing the Emperor in the end because the Emperor was going to kill Luke.
Now, see, now we're going to be on the same page. We're not supposed to be on the same page tonight, but I have to agree with you. He did, and he threw in with Luke. He did.
So I'm not completely making fun of Jerkovich, but we'll talk about that some more after our guest, and maybe you can convince me on which side of the Empire or the Rebel Alliance I need to be on. But let's go ahead and bring on our guest.
Oh, I'm not doing the convincing here. I mean, I think this is going to be our guest that's going to do that.
Well, maybe. We'll see what she has to say. All right, through the magic of clicking buttons and hoping I click the right one, Miss Allison, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, hear you loud and clear. Now, are you sure you want to be on this show? Because, we're talking about Star Wars and Vader and all that sort of crazy stuff.
Well, I think you had The Empire Strikes Back, and if you go back to that movie, and I can't say that I remember all of the Star Wars movie, but I think the first line in The Emperor Strikes Back is, "It's a dark time for the rebellion." And
yes,
it is not a dark time for the rebellion right now. So
God, I gotta tell you, she ought to be a politician.
That was smooth as silk.
Holy crap, she knows Star Wars.
I'm not afraid to answer any questions that you have to the extent that I can, or the ability that I can. I'm only an attorney representing plaintiffs in this case, I'm not a judge. And all I can do is tell you where I see the litigation as it stands, and try to answer your questions and be as transparent as I know how to be.
Excellent. So just so everybody knows, you've got limited time tonight, so about 30 minutes or so, and then we got to get you out of here. And we appreciate your time, too. So, Duke, I'll kind of let you queue up, I guess, where to start. Do we want Miss Allison maybe to give us a summary of the writ and what transpired at the Supreme Court first off?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the people listening probably know the history of this litigation. The clients that I represent were saddened that they had to file litigation. They had initially sought to resolve this matter internally, to seek records. Every time they sought records, roadblocks were put in place. They tried to meet with the pastor, and every time they sought that type of meeting, it was unproductive and they weren't being given the information. And then if they made a request, they were immediately removed from the church. So the litigation initially started with the writ of mandamus, just asking to review documents. And then we filed a petition seeking to annul the bylaws because the original bylaws, in our opinion, hadn't been complied with. I think it's important to acknowledge that that part of the litigation probably is over with respect to the bylaws. What the writ denial essentially established that you had 1 year to challenge the bylaws, and that would have been in 2015. Fortunately, I wasn't hired until like 2022, so wasn't my responsibility. But even then, I think most of my clients would argue that they were unaware of the time of the extent of the bylaws and were sort of bamboozled in this whole deal.
So
wasn't go ahead.
I want to stop you because what you're saying, you said a lot that I wanted to. Every one of those things are issues that I wanted to ask. So, in regards to you talking about 2015 and the date and the timeline, we talked about this subject on our last show, and we talked about on several other shows. Prescription. I mean, by what you just said, it almost sounded like you agreed with prescription. Has everything regarding this prescribed? Is that accurate or not?
No. What the Supreme Court said was the ability to challenge the current bylaws is prescribed. Now, I personally don't agree with that, but I don't wear a Supreme Court robe and I don't sign Supreme Court orders. And until somebody gives me the black robe, that's what I think about that doesn't really matter. We argued that up to the Supreme Court. But if you look at the concurring opinion of Justice Hughes. He says that while this is not an act of the corporation, that the claims against the remaining individual defendants remain viable. And so the claims in the first amended petition and the second amended petition are fiduciary duty claims. Those are claims that we argue you have a 10-year prescriptive period on. And of course, that's going to be something that's argued to the district court judge. And we'll argue all of these issues on February 15th. And the district court judge will say whether or not the remaining claims are viable, although we think they are because the concurrence says they clearly are. And the concurring opinion says that even though the bylaws can't be challenged, the remaining defendants can be challenged on their breaches of fiduciary duty, and it encourages that discovery be allowed with respect to the same. So if you go to our second amended petition, you'll see all of the different things that we alleged that they did to breach their fiduciary duty. And those are things that my clients simply want discovery on, and they want answers to questions. Now, you might ask, well, I think I heard, Duke, once you say on one of your shows, aren't both sides wrong in this? No, both sides are not wrong in this. When you grew up in a church where you were baptized, you were married, it was your church, and that church was basically taken over by somebody through bylaws, you have the right to challenge that. And you have the right to ask questions. And you have the right to get answers to those questions. Because remember, this church is a nonprofit corporation. It has to comply with nonprofit laws, and it's tax exempt. And that's why it's allowed to be tax exempt, because it's a nonprofit corporation.
Well, so what I want to say is that I'm glad that, look, I love debate and I love the challenges, and I appreciate that you know the past show. So one of the things that folks say, they say that it's not, Corinthians 6:1, 1 Corinthians 6:1. They say that, it's not biblical to take things to court and to settle matters regarding a church, in court. And, here you're saying what you're saying. I'm just wondering, do you think that's appropriate? Do you think that the charge that these former members of First Bossier are taking it to court, do you think that's appropriate? Because on one side, people are saying it's not appropriate. And on your side, and the former members, your clients, they're saying that it is appropriate. And
right.
So,
well, I think appropriate on two levels. I am not going to purport to say whether something is appropriate for purposes of anybody's individual decision. What I will do is speak with respect to my client's individual decision, and they felt as if they were left with no other choice because they were not being allowed to review records. They weren't getting answers to their questions. And if they asked a question, purportedly they were being removed as a member of the church. So they felt as if they had no choice, and it was a way of saving their church and hopefully, achieving some form of reconciliation. At this point, I think they'll have to make a decision, and it'll be a decision that they'll have to make as a group of what they want to do at this point. And most of what I've heard is they want to establish a record of what happens so it never happens to another church again. And that is something that the Supreme Court in the concurrent opinion said they're entitled to discovery. And they're entitled
So that what happens to their church again?
That the church is taken over with bylaws that basically establishes a dictator in charge. If you look at the history of the Baptist Church, the history of the Baptist Church is that it was member driven. That's the way it was originally formed. That's where, the history of it goes all the way. So the new bylaws that put him as dictator and says that every member of the leadership team has to be loyal to him. And that was something the concurring opinion said was not be loyal to God, but it has to be loyal to him. And surely there's a higher authority there. And I think that's what my clients felt is there was a higher authority, and they had to try to find out answers to the questions. And unfortunately, they were forced to use the courts to get some of those answers to the questions. And I think they still have questions. And the Supreme Court has said they're still entitled to discovery on those questions.
Well, were members, were folks that are your clients, were they part or members of the leadership team? Were they some of the folks who made the decisions as to whether to change the bylaws or not change the bylaws? Were they not, in fact, members? Because I will tell you that we've had people report to us. We get tons of folks from both sides of this issue send us information, and it's indicated to us that folks that are in your lawsuit were in fact members of the leadership team that made these changes.
Well, some were and some weren't. But the problem with the way the changes were made, and if you look at the Supreme Court concurrence, he noted this in his opinion, that it was basically a coup. You didn't get written notice of what the changes were going to be. It was something that was just announced after a sermon. You didn't get the chance to review these particular changes. And so they had faith and trust in the pastor at the time. They didn't realize the effect of what was happening. Now, should they have? Maybe, maybe not. According to the Supreme Court, as it stands, they should have within a year. They had 1 year to challenge, according to the Supreme Court. We argued 10 years. Supreme Court found differently. I'm not going to argue with the Supreme Court on the bylaws issue anymore. That's been decided. What is currently pending are the fiduciary duty claims, and the Supreme Court has said those remain viable, and we're entitled to discovery on those.
So Rex,
Go ahead.
So you said that they made the changes to the bylaws without any notification. Am I understanding that correctly? How did that go?
If you look at the original bylaws, and I think they were adopted in 1934, I'd have to go back and look at the exact year, but under the original bylaws, in order to change the bylaws, you had to give 1 month's written notice, and you had to tell them what the changes were going to be, and that had to go to every member of the church before you took a vote. And we've argued that that didn't happen. And the Supreme Court in the concurrence says basically, yeah, First Baptist provided no evidence that they complied with those original bylaws. But the opinion was, if that happens, you have to challenge it within 1 year. And that did not happen in this case. It wasn't challenged until 2022 or 2023, whenever the lawsuit was filed. So, okay, that's what the Supreme Court held with respect to the bylaws. But in that concurring opinion, Justice Hughes says all other claims against the remaining defendants remain viable, and discovery should be allowed to proceed. And that means that my clients should be able to ask questions of the pastor and the leadership team and find out the answers to those questions to determine whether or not they want to go forward with the litigation or don't want to go forward with respect to the breach of fiduciary duty claims.
Now, kind of how we read it, being the absolutely amateur legal scholars that we are,
probably just as good as my reading,
was that, and I'm probably not going to use the right legal terminology here, was that the plaintiffs could basically file against the individuals rather than the church. Is that interpretation, a loose interpretation of it, close to true?
I mean, that's, if you read Justice Hughes' concurrence, it says that they can, and in fact they have. If you read the First Amendment petition and the Second Amending petition, we've already detailed all of the claims against the pastor and his leadership team, and all of the things that they should be responsible for their fiduciary duty. Remember, when you agreed to serve, let's just take the church out of it for a moment and say we're dealing on some charity nonprofit, and you agree to serve on the board for the nonprofit. Well, you have a fiduciary duty to anyone who contributes money to that nonprofit. You have a fiduciary duty to spend that money wisely, to handle all the books and records wisely, to make sure that you don't misappropriate those funds. And if you breach that fiduciary duty, you have liability. This is a nonprofit corporation. We've argued that that breach of fiduciary duty applies. Now, at this point, we'll have to see what the court allows. There's a hearing on February 15th where all of these different arguments back and forth, and I expect opposing counsel to raise a lot of defenses. In fact, he already has. But the judge will decide how much further this litigation can go. And then after the judge decides, My clients will decide how much further this litigation can go. The goal was initially to try to undo the bylaws and try to achieve reconciliation. I think the goal now is to establish the record of what happened so this never ever happens again.
Okay, so Duke, if you've got some more commentary, but I'm gonna try to get this video kind of queued up. So,
do you have the video?
I think so. So let me see if I can switch screens and make this work. Allison, bear with us for just a second.
Am I going to be able to see the video?
Yes, I think so. I think hopefully, if everything goes well, yes. All right, so you won't see it yet, but let me click a couple of buttons here and see if this will work. Now, this is. I mentioned a few weeks ago, right? Dang it, I don't have the screen set up, Duke. Hold on. And let me see here. Dadgummit.
Well, if you want to bring Allison back in and we can just describe it to her.
Yeah, give me a second.
Yeah, so what and my apologies to everyone watching the show, but we just had this sent in to us while we're talking about the subject. But it's a video of, Brad Jerkovich, and it's at some point prior to the meeting to which I guess they had the vote of the church or what have you, where he was announcing to everyone to review the proposed amendments to the bylaws of the church or what have you. And maybe it's irrelevant. I don't 100% know, but and I don't know that this video is actually, was it, with enough notice? I don't know, but I mean, clearly he said.
That question. I think I can answer that question.
Okay.
A verbal announcement of a change in the bylaws did not comply with the original bylaws. The original bylaws say you have to give written notice of the proposed changes. Now, I do want to be clear that decision's already been decided by the Supreme Court, not on the merits of the case, of whether he complied or he didn't comply, but on the fact that there was no challenge to his action within 1 year. So, great that he has the video. It's really irrelevant to any of the issues. Assuming that we had been allowed to go, it would have been irrelevant because even the video didn't comply with what the original bylaws had to say that was necessary in order to amend the bylaws.
All right, so I'm going to roll the video. We won't be on the screen, but you should both be able to see it just to show it, Miss Allison. And you've already addressed the question, but here we go.
I mentioned a few weeks ago, right at 11, right across the hall here in the choir room, if you have any questions about our updated bylaws and Constitution, I've answered several questions in the last few weeks, but we're going to make ourselves available, Jason Poe and a couple others. If you've got any particular questions while we're here on campus, that's going to be available at 11. I'll be in the hospitality room for a few minutes, but then I will cruise right over. So anyway, if you have any questions, you want to talk with us, we're here on campus this morning. We want to make that available as well before we approve all that next Sunday. Lord's doing some cool stuff.
So anyway, so that wasn't in compliance with the previous rules, is what you're saying.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
And in fact, the Supreme Court noted that there was no evidence that they had ever given any written notice of the bylaws or the proposed changes as was required by the original bylaws.
Right.
So I watched your interview. I don't know if it was Channel 12 or 3 or one of them. I saw that video. I mean, look, I'm not taking a side here, but I mean, you did good as far as an attorney representing your client. But you said several things. You said church funds were diverted to unapproved projects. Your clients were denied access to documents. Transparency is important. Tithes were misused, and similar allegations of financial impropriety at 2 churches in Texas. I made notes. So what diverted to unapproved projects? Formerly on this show, we talked about one of the things was that Pastor Jerkovich, there was potentially that, because it was this allegation that was being sent to us saying that funds may have been to Rex. What was the name of that thing over there with the guy who was the mentor of Pastor Brad, and that his wife was ended up named?
Yeah, where they, I think where they named the hall after her, had her name above it or something. I can't remember the whole deal.
Is that accurate or is that inaccurate?
Well, those are the allegations that we made in the second amended petition. We detailed each and every one of those allegations, and those are the things that we are asking the court to have the ability to conduct discovery on. We have never put Pastor Brad under oath. We have never put the leadership team under oath. One would hope that the oath would make a difference. One would hope that we could get answers to those questions. So one of the things we're going to be asking the court on February 15th is for the opportunity to conduct that discovery, as Justice Hughes has said we're entitled to do, and to get answers to those questions. We have made those allegations on information and belief in our second amended petition, which I would encourage anyone who wants to know what we're alleging to have gone wrong can read that in that petition. And of course, it's a public record, and we can make it a public record available. But we've detailed each and everything that we believe has been a breach of fiduciary duty, and those were part of the allegations.
Well, we'll make sure. I can't remember if we've shared it out on Facebook yet, but we'll make sure at the end of the show that I've got that shared out for folks to read. Go ahead, Duke.
I know y'all were asking to be able to review all of the financials. Have y'all been able to do that? Were you given access to the financials and to review all of those? Or, because it seems like there's a big question there. Because you're saying, we want to be able to have discovery on that, which says to me that no, you haven't. But I hear that was a part of the case going up to this point.
Okay, well, let's not confuse the two, because I think that does sometimes happen. Have we reviewed records? Yes, we have. There was a court order by Judge Smith, and we weren't allowed to review records until the court ordered them. So even those records we have reviewed. We've reviewed them under a protective order, so we don't just put all the church's financial information out there in public. There are certain items that the judge has ordered that we haven't yet gotten access to, but we're working to try to, get full compliance with that order. Then when I'm talking about discovery, I'm talking about taking some of the documents that we've reviewed that the church has produced, and also some documents that we've obtained from other parties that have been doing investigative work for us, and asking the pastor under oath what happened on this transaction. And it's not necessarily getting to look at the document, it's getting the opportunity to conduct discovery, to ask questions about the document. And that's what Justice Hughes said that we were entitled to on the remaining viable claims. And so we'll see if, when we go back to court on February 15th, we get the opportunity to do that. But what we want at this point is the opportunity to ask questions about many of the documents that were produced and some of the documents that we've obtained from independent sources.
All right, so I got a question. I'm reading from Pastor Brad's, which you may not have seen, but we did show it on a couple of shows ago or whatever. Apparently, it's an email that he sent to the church body, I think. But he says, and I quote, "They wanted to take control of this church body through 2 amendments of their lawsuit. These former members have even asked the court to remove me, Eddie, Lorene, and our entire leadership team." So my question is, are your plaintiffs wanting to take over the church?
No, the whole goal of the litigation was that it was a last resort to try to achieve some form of reconciliation, and then to make a record of what had happened. Because if you look at the history of this particular minister, you see that this has happened at 2 churches before. And had the members known when he was being recruited as pastor what had happened at those 2 churches, I doubt that he would have been the selection. That's just speculation on my part. But they want to make sure that everybody knows what happened here, and then everybody can make their decisions to go forward. I did read the statement that was put out by the pastor, And I think one has called it spin doctoring. One of the things that I was very careful about when I did my press release was to attach actual copies of the Supreme Court opinions so you could compare what I was saying about it with what the actual language was of the Supreme Court opinion. And I found it a little bit surprising that when he put his statement out, he didn't attach the Supreme Court opinion or the concurrence, because the concurrence was very critical of him. It basically said that there was a coup that occurred at this church, that there was the possibility of fraudulent conduct, and that claims remained and were still viable, and discovery should be allowed to be conducted. And I think if he was being absolutely transparent, which is something that we know historically he has not been, but if he was being transparent with respect to that statement, he would have attached that concurrence and disclosed to his congregation the Supreme Court, the full Supreme Court opinion.
I'm going to switch.
Okay.
Go ahead and switch
I gotta,
screens, dude.
Yeah, I gotta play devil's advocate here, and I gotta say that in regards to the impropriety at the two churches in Texas or whatever, because
right at 11, right across the hall here in the choir
you're
room.
not
If you have
you're
any
not
questions
the
about at 11, right across the hall here.
Just a second, sorry.
You're not the Star Wars tech guy that you say you are. So,
I hit the wrong button, apparently.
I know what you're doing. You're just trying to burnish our resume as amateur journalists.
Yes.
But anyway, Allison, so we had this sent to us, and it is a letter from Victory Life Church. And for the most part, it's basically kind of propping up, Pastor Brad and saying that, his history here and some of the revelations that occurred before, that it wasn't necessarily a bad experience. And I'm pretty sure that that's one of the two churches that you may or may not have been citing. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I am saying that this letter is floating out there and you may not know about it. And we may be catching you cold feet here.
I didn't know about it, but I have some thoughts about it. If I'm critiquing it as a lawyer, I would want to know the leadership team of record of Victory Life in Lubbock. Was that the leadership team in place at the time that he departed from that church? And I will tell you that there have been several people from that church that have come forward and are speaking to investigative people that tell a completely different story. So certainly everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I haven't seen this letter, but I would tell you that there are conflicting stories on that issue. And then with respect to the second church that was at issue, I think you can find much of that stuff in public records, in newspaper articles about what was alleged and what wasn't alleged. And then there is more investigative, reviews going on currently. I expect that you will see more about what happened at Victory Life Church in either local or national news. I expect you will see more about the Lubbock Church. I expect that these are all things that are being obtained from independent sources that hopefully my clients can get answers to questions about if they're allowed to go forward and do discovery as the Supreme Court encourages us to do.
Well, I guess we'll kind of wrap up this, and I want to say this, and this is more personal. This is Duke. This isn't Bossier Watch. This isn't First Bossier. And look, I know you are employed by former members of First Bossier, and I have a personal take on this. And this is my take, and I'm not taking a side either way on this, but it's a personal observation. I've had people send to me, the 1 Corinthians chapter 6, saying, again, I mentioned it earlier that we shouldn't be trying we shouldn't be suing and trying things in the church, and it gets into the monotheism and all this crap or whatever. And I shouldn't say it that way. I shouldn't say crap. I mean, because I am being a little rude to people. But look, this is Bossier Watch. We just say it and we throw it out there. But I'm going to say it. My personal opinion, I think your clients and I think First Church, I think they're all to blame for this situation. I think they're all to blame. And the reason I think they're all to blame, and they can say whatever they want, but I think this ultimately at the end of the day revolves around allowing politics in the church, you mix the two, your politics ended up crossing, and you end yourself up at the end of the day in a lawsuit. And that doesn't, if you're a Christian, that doesn't bring glory to the church. None of that. In fact, it sends it to the other direction. And so for either side to be throwing rocks, I mean, you're throwing rocks at yourself.
Well, I've heard you make that statement before on previous shows, and I would point out to you that even Jesus went to the church to throw out the money changers. So I think that it is with deep regret that my clients found themselves having to file suit. It's deep regret that they're now listed as former members. That was not their choice. That was the pastor's choice, only because they asked questions and they wanted answers to questions. So I disagree with you as far as there being fault on both sides. I've heard you express that opinion, but I think sometimes when you see something that's gone wrong, you feel that it is your Christian duty to question, and it is your Christian duty to make sure that you get answers to questions. And if that has to be accomplished through litigation against a nonprofit corporation that gets certain advantages under federal law, then it's your duty. And it's the leadership team's duty to be sure that they don't just serve the loyalty to the pastor, that they comply with their fiduciary duties. And that's all my clients have ever asked, is that they get answers to questions in this litigation. And hopefully one day they will get those answers to questions. And if they don't, they've at least made a record of what happened. So no matter what happens to First Bossier or what happens in the future, there's a record of this very, very sad tale.
Well, I agree with what you said. I'm going to disagree just a little bit. I'm going to say this. Both sides, prior to Brad Jerkovich, nobody had a problem with politicians standing at the exits of First Bossier, shaking hands, and using the church for that purpose. So
we might agree on that. We agree.
On one hand, to make the argument that clients taking something into the court system and saying that it's not monotheistic, therefore it's against God's word, I got to tell you, I disagree with that.
That's apples to oranges. I mean, to say that you don't have a problem with politicians coming to your church and using your church for political reasons is one thing. But to say that you do have a problem with a pastor who arguably, and it's alleged, is misusing funds, not keeping proper records, diverting funds, that's a whole different issue. That's not politics. That's a breach of fiduciary duty. And so I think that's where you and I agree probably on the politics side of it. The church and politics should never mix. It should be separation of church and state. But where you're talking about, if you're a member of a church, do you have a right to question? Do you have a right to see if there is a money changer in your midst? And do you have a right to get access to records? I think that's where you and I may disagree, because I think you certainly do have a right to ask those questions. Jesus asked those questions.
And that is my point. And I think with it, we do agree that if you can't say it's okay for the politics to happen and then cry that, oh no, we shouldn't be able to, go to court to resolve an issue, you can't have it in one sense and then not have it in the other. It goes both ways. And as a result, in my opinion, if you allow one to happen in the church, you can't then claim the higher position that no,
you can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You can't have it both ways. You open that door.
Well, I would just remind everybody that Jesus fashioned his own whips. He literally took the time to make his own whips and beat the hell out of them. I'm just saying.
I don't know if I would say it that way, Rex, but I understand. I understand your point. But look, I think I don't know how we're doing on time. I'm happy to answer any questions you have if y'all have other questions.
Well, if it's time is strictly up to you. I mean, we've literally got all night just about, but it's strictly up to you.
I got a question. I got a question.
Go ahead, dude.
You're on this high profile case of First Bossier. you're on another high-profile case in Bossier. You're on the Red Rover case versus, I guess, the city of Bossier City. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Yes. I
Okay.
will tell you that when I die, I hope they don't say I'm a scholar. I hope they say I'm a passionate advocate for people seeking justice.
Who knew that you would be maybe the most consequential guest that we would have this year?
I don't know. But I do represent Red Rover in their litigation against Bossier. That too is sad. I always tell my clients that litigation should be a last resort. It's expensive, it's difficult, it's hard to get through, it's painful. The only people that love it are the lawyers, and there's something not right with us. We're not wired right, but we do love it. And in this case, we tried very hard to avoid litigation and to try to get this matter resolved. Unfortunately, in the Red Rover case, we were unable to do that. And I've alleged in the petition or the complaint that we filed in federal court that there was a lot of improper goings on in Bossier with respect to this particular small business. And hopefully we'll try to find a way to find relief. And I'd be happy to come back and talk to y'all sometime when I have a little more time about that litigation if you want me to. But I was on a limited time. I had told Rex when he asked me, I had about 30 minutes, and that's about what I have. And I think we've kind of exceeded that. But once again, I try very hard with my cases to be both an advisor, to give people advice with respect to litigation, and then also a passionate advocate. And I also try very hard in the litigation to make sure that we're as transparent as possible. And so that's what I wanted to do with First Bossier, because I think the allegations back and forth have been that, each side is wrong. Well, there's one side being transparent and there's one side who's not. And I don't represent the side who's not being transparent. I represent the side who's seeking transparency. And so I think that's true in the Red Rover case. It's a similar theme. One day we'll get to the truth in that case. I don't think we'll have as many roadblocks thrown up against us with respect to discovery or what we'll need. And certainly my clients have done a very good job in the Red Rover case of collecting evidence ahead of time. So we'll see where we go.
Do you, neither one of these cases, let's get away from both of these cases. I want to ask you, as a legal scholar and as me, a Rhodes Scholar of Stupidville, I want to ask you, do you think the justice system is equal? Do you think it's fair? Do you think that image with that little, do you think that's right, or do you think it's to one side or the other?
I think the ideal of equal justice is what we should all aspire to. And I think it's what we should demand of our judges. It's what we should demand of our courts. Do I think that sometimes there are failures in that system? I absolutely do. But I think that should never stop us from demanding equal justice under the law for everyone. How about that as an answer?
Good answer.
I'm just wondering what you're running for. I mean, you got to run.
I'm not running for anything. I'm running for retirement. No, I do love what I do for a living. I love being a passionate advocate for my clients, and I was happy to answer any of your any questions you had. I'd be happy to come back and talk about Red Rover if you need it. And then hopefully, if anyone else has questions, they can get those questions to me. But the goal here is on February 15th. To be able to conduct discovery and get answers to the questions for my clients, and then my clients to make a decision of what they want to do. And hopefully we'll be able to do that after February 15th. So thank you for having me on tonight, and good luck with the rest of the show. And I'm sorry I have to leave early, but I had told Rex I only had 30 minutes.
Oh, you have been more than gracious with your time, and we appreciate you coming on, and we will have you back for more on Red Rover.
Okay, thank you. All right.
All right. Thank you, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Well, that was interesting. She pretty much addressed everything, I thought. What'd you think?
She did. I gotta tell you, that was an amazing interview.
Does this mean I have to turn off the Empire Strikes Back and lightsabers now and go back to our normal screen?
I gotta tell you, I mean, look, I have my bias. I do have my bias, but it's not against the existing First Bossier crowd. Um, it's against all of First Bossier, and when I say that, it's against the existing, the past. It's against all of it because that's my personal thing because I'm a victim of what it was.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way it was. Um, so I don't take pleasure in what I see happening to, my faith and the church. I don't take any pleasure in that whatsoever. I don't. I don't like it at all. But you and I are sitting here trying to call ball and strikes, and it's kind of hard to do.
Right.
Just like I had somebody texting me, again, I keep going back to Corinthians that we shouldn't be suing, but then I'm struggling with it. I'm reading it and I'm saying, okay, well, if it,
Well,
in the
I'm
in
going to
the
share
in
some let me interrupt you for just a
Okay.
second. So I'm going to share some comments that were flying by on the screen as we were talking to Allison, and so I want you to go ahead and if you want to go ahead and kind of finish that thought, and then I want to address it for a second. So David Jones, I'm going back in time here a little bit, says she's as good as she gets. So I'm just going to flash some of these comments. So go ahead.
Well, okay, so I see Elizabeth, somebody, I'm not going to read your whole name. Anyway, they're saying, Duke, you need to move on. And I get it. You're right. Maybe I do need to move on. You're right. But I will tell you that the example of me and what happened with me is an example of why we're here today where we're at. This is the end result of when you allow a church to be politicized and used as a tool. This is the end result. And now we're fighting amongst ourselves and we're going to cite, First Corinthians 6:1 that we shouldn't be deciding issues in, a court of Gentiles or what have you. Well, what is Gentiles?
Well, all right, but hold on. Let me address that for a second, and I want to share with Christopher James Norris. He says I want to bump my comment. What about the story go around that Brad has been accused of impropriety at two churches in Texas? We actually covered that pretty extensively several shows back. I think was it the church massacre episode that we did or show that we did? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
But we've actually covered that. So if you'll go back either on YouTube or Facebook, you'll have to watch some of the shows. But we covered a lot of that. But look, here's the thing. All right. So what is the church supposed to do? Are they just supposed to drink the Flavor Aid, AKA Jim Jones style, and just do whatever the pastor says? Or is there no recourse at all? Does the church want to be tax free? It's okay to involve the government then, but they can't involve the government as far as the judicial branch. I don't get where people are coming across. I get it from a biblical sense that they don't want to tear apart the church or dissension, but literally, if your pastor was up there and grew a set of horns and was spitting satanic verses, which I'm not accusing Brad of doing, but I'm saying, what does it take to actually remove a pastor, and then how do you get him out?
Well, and the other thing, like we had people send us the allegation saying that, or suggesting that proceeds from First Church were used to name the place over in Texas or whatever after the pastor's church, after the pastor's wife's name. We weren't able to 100% confirm that or whatever. Those were allegations. It's not been confirmed up to this point, not to my knowledge, that church proceeds were used for that. We threw it out there. It hasn't went anywhere. Paige Patterson, that's where we're talking about here.
Yep.
And one of the other allegations, we didn't get to this with Allison, but the argument, I think there was a point that was made about family members being in church. And again, the other side is conveyed to us, said, well, okay, the people that are making the charge that Pastor Brad has used family members in First Church or has family members on staff, where are they in their condemnation of prior to Pastor Brad condemning family members being on the staff of Dr. Fred. Haven't heard that. Okay, wait a minute. What did Grady Davis say? Hold that one right there. Don't pull it off.
I figured that one would cause you to pause.
I see my name there. Duke has
so
played advocate enough during his episode that I hope he cashed his first Mosier check. Oh, good grief. So now you're saying, look, Grady Davis.
You've been bought out.
I've been bought out.
You've been bought out.
Gosh.
Look,
okay.
now,
Grady Davis. Wait a minute. Grady Davis. Let me ask this question. I think Grady Davis was on staff at First Church prior to Brad, I think, and then up to some point with Brad. I know. So Grady, if you're going to make that claim, riddle me this. Was there family members of the pastor prior to Pastor Brad on staff at First Church? Is that accurate or inaccurate? And let me add to that. The folks, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Again, I'm trying to throw rocks everywhere. I'm throwing rocks at everybody. So I'm trying to make I'm trying to make everybody mad tonight. But the thing is I'm not holding back. I don't care. Let's let the light disinfect everything. So all the people in this suit, all the people, obviously they're not First Church people today. They've moved on, right? So I'm wondering, the churches where they're at today, I'm wondering, do the pastors of those churches have family members on staff? And if so, do they have an issue with that? Are they saying anything?
That's a fair point.
And I'm not saying that Pastor Brad's right. I'm not saying, but what I am saying, I'm talking about them. Is their claims legitimate? If it is legitimate, if family members shouldn't be there, are they throwing rocks where it was in the past? And are they throwing rocks currently where they're at that there shouldn't be family members on there? Y'all feeling me, or am I off here in la la land? I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
So, well, and look, folks, in all fairness to Duke, let me go down this rabbit hole for just a second. I've showing on the screen the post that I made 5 days ago that says First Church, First Bossier alert. Now there's some asterisks right there, and it says Dr. Brad Jerkovich. I think he's got his doctorate in theology. Maybe I may be wrong about that, but anyway, those dots were spin, as in spin Dr. Brad Jerkovich. Now, I got to tell y'all, folks, because most of you don't realize this, and Duke, I'll try to say this without saying too much. I got more grief from Duke Lowry over having the word spin doctor on that post than any other post we've done, anything we've said on this show, and we have said a whole lot about folks on this show. Duke got more grief over that than anything else we've ever had. To the point I actually changed the post.
I gotta say, how many people are we willing to disenfranchise or make mad at us tonight? Is there any limit to the quantity of people that we want to alienate?
Duke, you know me, I have.
Because I
have no limits.
I was fixing to say something to the effect of their public education, in which that'll arouse all of the public school educators to hate on me, in which they already have plenty enough to hate on you. But I mean, look, what spin doctor? I mean, you and I disagreed on that, and we do disagree on that.
We may disagree on it, but look. Let me see if I can get the definition up there.
What do you think? Do you think Pastor Brad is supposed to say, oh, hey, by the way, the Supreme Court, threw this bone to the people suing us that they should go after us personally? Should he say that?
Oh, no, he's got to put the best color lipstick on that pig that he can find. I get that.
I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way at all.
Let me just look. Here's the Google definition of it.
And I'm being fair. I've only talked to Brad. Wait a minute. I've only talked to Brad Jerkovich twice in my life on 2 different occasions. One at Mike Johnson's quote unquote election
coronation.
To be a congressman the first time, and the second time was when I was walking the streets collecting signatures for term limits in Bossier City. That's the only 2 times I've ever talked to him.
All right. So the definition of spin doctor, according to Google and Webster, is a spokesperson employed to give a favorable interpretation of events to the media, especially on behalf of a political party. I would argue that's Brad to a T, because let me be clear for everybody, and for those of you that might be new, we've still got well north of 230 some odd people watching. We're not attacking or talking about First Bossier, we affectionately call First Church, for the sake of attacking or talking about a church. It's because of the political ties that this church has historically and always had. And that's the reason that it's on and has been on our radar. But I would say that this definition right here, it's spot on, Duke. I mean, it's got every element matches up to Darth Jerkovich.
I disagree, because what he needs to do, he represents a church and he represents a congregation.
Right.
And he needs to have a positive message to the members of his church to promote the church, make the church grow. That's what he's got to do. So what is he supposed to do? Go out there and spin the story of the folks who are suing them? Is that what he's supposed to do?
No, he's not. And I get it, but it's just like what. Look, I've shared out on Facebook the flashback of the Bossier Now article that Hal Bundick or whatever his last name was, wrote positively about us about a year after we got started. And I also shared the fact that he said, and I quote, and said, "You're dead to me."
Yeah, he got
took his toys home. All because we called him out on the show about kind of skewing an online poll. And it was his poll. He can skew it all he wants, but don't get mad when you get called out on it. So this is the same thing. I'm just calling Brad out on it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But he's a spin doctor.
But
that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Look, the reality is this isn't about Brad, and this isn't about, all the other. This is about everyone, all of them involved. I mean, look, if you were a First Church, wait a minute, okay, what if somebody says Heath Harvey totally agreed? Next week, Duke will be praising Montgomery. Oh, good grief!
Oh, that's going a little far.
Okay, if Thomas Shea, Heath Harvey, if all of y'all that want to, I don't care. Y'all can throw rocks at me. I'm tough. I can take it. I don't give a crap. Y'all can throw rocks at me all you want. Throw away. If you've lived in Bossier for any amount of time, you know that First Church has been the bed of politics in Bossier. If you wanted to be elected to an office, you had to be a member of First Church. And if you say, I'm full of crap, you're a dog-faced pony soldier liar, as Joe Biden would say.
When he could say it, but coherently.
When he could say it. That's the way it is. You know it. And the bottom line is where we're at today is because, and I'm just going to sum this up real easy. I'm going to tidy it up for all of y'all. Where we're at today is because the politics, the people who are suing, and the politics, they didn't equal up. Their politics crossed. You know what I think, Rex?
What?
Here is my hypothesis.
All right, give me yours, and I'm going to give you mine.
Okay. You probably already know mine. I think Brad Jerkovich, I'm not saying Brad Jerkovich is a perfect person. Look, none of us are. We all have our flaws. I mean, good grief. I'm only 5'5", bald-headed. I mean, thank goodness my wife still loves me. But with that said, we all have flaws. And here's the thing. Brad Jerkovich has his, the same as everybody else, even the people suing him. Yeah. Brad Jerkovich, I think, this is in my heart, this is what I believe. I think when he came in, he truly believed that he was going to be able to take this to another level. And the reason he believed, because he believed he was coming to a powerful church with powerful people that had a lot of money, and their politics agreed with trying to promote, the faith that First Bossier held. That's what he believed. And he tried to go forward with that. He tried to take it to another level. He had Mike Johnson. He had we showed the pictures with all the politicians in this political meeting down there. He thought he was going to take it to another level, right?
Right.
Well, when the rubber met the road and he truly tried to take it, and I use the word extreme, that's not my word, but I'm using it as a descriptive to try to decide the direction that he thought it was going to go. He was going to be able to take it to another level, but what he found out was the people that were said to be in support, their extreme and their politics were not the same as what his was. So then you came to a crossroads. I want to also point out that it was along the same times of a very divisive time between the Gaddy politics and the Johnson politics.
Now you're getting close to what my theory is. Keep going.
So we started seeing the divisiveness, the sheets per se started to be split, and upon that being split, then you had all-out war.
Okay.
Then you had all-out war.
So hold that thought there for a second, because I think it's your fault, Duke.
You know what? And if it
I do.
If
it goes back to the District 8 race.
No.
Oh,
Look,
yeah. If you had decided to run, that whole stabbing in the back quote during the intro of our show, we won't necessarily go down that whole rabbit hole. But I blame you, because if you hadn't decided to run, then they could have just inserted, well, and I guess Robbie Gaddy's at fault too, which means Ryan Gaddy's at fault because he ran too in that race, if I remember correctly. Right? But then they wouldn't have they could have just inserted Raymond Cruz in there and everything would have been hunky-dory and the church might never have caught fire. See? There you go. Problem solved. It's your fault and you just didn't realize it, Duke.
Because someone other than someone that was a member of First Bossier actually threw their name in the hat? Is that what it is? Well, here's what I would say. So let's go back in time. Everybody, 200 and something people, and I'm going to take the leap of faith here that a majority of you are First Church members or former First Church members. And I'm wondering, so if a pastor says that in their church, and they say it from the stage, and they say, let me just, look, every show I got to do something to try to get us booted. So here we go. I'm going to say it. But
yeah, we'll have several attempts tonight, but go ahead.
So when I'm talking about monotheism, I mean, a lot of you may not realize when you talk about monotheism, you're talking about Judaism, you're talking about Christianity, and you're also talking about Islam. But for the sake of this conversation, when someone makes the statement that Islam is a religion created by the devil, I'm just wondering, is that something that our Christian churches, our Christian brothers, should we stand by that? Should we defend that? I'm just wondering. So if your pastor stands up on a stage and he says that, I mean, shouldn't it be, if you're a member of that church, shouldn't you be able to articulate that? Shouldn't you be able to say that? If your pastor is willing to stand up on a stage and use your church to say that, I mean, if you're willing to say it in your church, should you not be willing to say it in public?
Well,
and if you
church is considered quasi-public.
Well, if you're not willing to say that in public, and then if you are one of those church members, and then you say, you know what, if somebody outside of being a pastor does say that, you know what, we're going to ensure that they get death threats to themselves, death threats to their family, and all the like. I'm just wondering, what about y'all in your faith? I mean, does that mean that you're not faithful? I don't know. I'm scratching my head here. I'm wondering for everybody watching.
and beginning next week, folks, we will have Theology Watch launching on Wednesday nights. Opposite church time.
But I'm just saying, Rex.
No, you got a point. I understand.
This monotheism question and all this, because to cite, because it was sent to us. It was that I've done said it. This will make the fourth time I've said it about Corinthians, and it's using the Bible to say it's unholy to question in a judicial setting, and if you actually read, and I got a cut in here, I actually went and put it in the notes, Rex, and I think you ought to go with it. Cut 8, Corinthians 6:1.
Let me see if I can find it here.
Let's go down this road. I mean, who
Here we
knew
go.
that on a Tuesday night Bossier Watch we were going to have Bible study? And I appreciate it because it made me stop today and start studying a little bit. But 1 Corinthians 6:1, dare any of you having a matter against another go to law before the unjust. That is what was sent to us, and saying that it's for this lawsuit to have taken place, it was inappropriate. And if you dig into it later, you dig into it a little deeper, it's talking about, and I am no preacher and I am subject to make mistakes. I mean, look, I am not that guy. You will not hear me beating the Bible over your head. I know that I am flawed. I know that I'm a sinner. All those things. I know that I'm less than. But here's the point. In that scripture, if you go and just read it just a little bit, this is out of the King James Version. They were talking about in regards to Gentiles. What is a Gentile? A Gentile is anyone other than the Jews. That makes all of us, right?
Right. Except for Ben Shapiro, but we'll get to that. Go ahead.
Oh, God, you're going to rock.
Go ahead.
I mean, so, but how can you use this to say that, if you view our courts and our legal system to be one and the same as the Gentiles, then how can you differentiate politics? If you're so willing to engage, your church is so willing to engage in the politics, and say that, how can you differentiate that as not being a part of the Gentile? If that's the measure that,
all right,
you can't participate in the courts because you're participating in a Gentile process, what about the politics?
Well, hold on just a second. So where does it end, though? So for that matter, we may as well get rid of the whole judicial system. And that's where I have a disagreement and want to point out the hypocrisy of trying to use that to weaponize these types of things. Number one, the church is a business, full stop. It's a 501c3. It is a business, period. Number two, if we're going to say that Christians can't sue each other, or can't sue the church, are we talking about church with a capital C or church with a lowercase c? Because that means that we just get rid of the whole judicial system, because in theory, we should all be of the Christian faith and all believe in God and Jesus Christ and all just get along and play nice in the sand and not have to sue anybody for any reason. Where does it stop? Somebody answer that in the comments. Address that.
I agree. And somebody in the comments made a statement, and I think they were referencing me. And I know that they were a member of First Church. I would say to those of you who were at First Church during this time, where were you when members of your church were questioning my faith? And if you want, I will state that, while your candidate in politics was at an event that I wasn't at, I was in the jail witnessing to inmates, and that was why I couldn't make the event. But yet, after the fact, members of your church were making posts on Facebook about me, and that, the only candidate with faith that would show up was this individual person. You questioned me and had no idea what I was doing. I was in the jail with some of the lowest in our society. I mean, where were you, members of First Church? You were members of First Church. You just said something in our comment. I take that personal, Rex. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's still to this day, as in our promo, the knife in the back. I still feel it. I mean, to this day, And
And
one of them,
it's literally the reason to remind everybody that First Church is on our radar at all is because of the blatant political tie-ins. So,
and I mean, look, I forgive everybody down there for all of that, but I don't forgive the use of the church for what it was not meant to be used for. I don't. I don't. I don't at all. Um,
okay, so our good friend David Jones says, Duke, you are evil and should be destroyed. So maybe that's you, the rebel, back there in the shadows fighting Darth Jerkovich with his pink
you know,
lightsaber and your blue one.
you know what? They can all bring it. Bring whatever you got, and if you get me, I got no doubts where I'm going. I'm not
All
worried
right.
at all in the least bit.
All right, so let's it's 8:20 now. We need to kind of move on if we're going to get through some of this. So we'll get to the rap business later, but do we
Agreed
want
with
to
that. Red Rover, there's a little cleanup on
Yes.
Red Rover we need to make.
So this is the part where all of y'all need to tag your friends who are interested in the Red Rover thing and make sure that certain people like my neighbor a few houses down are watching this clip, and our guest from earlier. Make sure she sees this part of the show because I think it might be a little interesting. It's something, honestly, Duke, that we missed or kind of glossed over, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think in review of the case in Red Rover, and if a lot of folks don't, while you're ginning that up, a lot of folks, if you don't know, because there's probably a lot of folks that are not familiar with what we're talking about when we talk about Red Rover. On our shows, we highlight, primarily it's been a focus on local government activities in Bossier City and Bossier Parish, trying to bring light to what normally most folks, y'all don't see it from day to day. You have no idea. So there's this case and this business in Bossier called Red Rover. And they're like forever, and they are a dog boarding facility off of Swan Lake Road. I think it's Swan Lake Road, right? Is it Swan Lake?
No, not Swan Lake. If you hadn't asked me, I could remember. My memory's going short. Stockwell.
Stockwell. Yeah, Stockwell. So they're boarding all these dogs, and there is a resident that lives proximal to the business. And, they complain, a legitimate complaint. If I lived there and I heard the dogs barking all the freaking time and I wasn't able to enjoy, my TV show of the Weather Channel or whatever it may be, it would probably annoy me as well too, and I would have some complaints. But as I understand it, collectively, the business was there before the residence was there. So, what ends up happening? The person who has the residence is someone who is connected in Bossier City politics, and that person, what does he do? He phones a friend. And then after phoning a friend, things kind of get involved. Things kind of go sideways a little bit.
Yeah, Waylon Jennings starts singing Just Some Good Old Boys in the background.
Yeah.
All right. You getting a message on the bat phone there?
I did, and okay. I am not going to engage in that.
I won't even guess who that is. But all right, so I've got this queued up whenever you're ready. So we're at the point where basically, if you hadn't watched, we've got several episodes on this. One of them, I think we literally called the show Red Rover. But anyway, you can go back and watch those for some more of the context. But this is where one of the officers had been in there, not really harassing the owners of Red Rover, but engaging with them. And so he goes out to his patrol vehicle, and he's having a phone conversation here. Now, to be clear, we've shown part of this before. As a matter of fact, we posted it as its own video on both Facebook and YouTube, just this segment, but we missed somehow a few seconds that are really important.
A few seconds that are really important, and I think that ultimately, this will become even more important.
Yeah, so here we go. I'm going to hit play, and let's play it through this because there's like one statement right here that's important.
I'm on the phone with BJ about it. I'll call you right back.
All right, so I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna turn the volume down just a little bit so everybody's ears don't blow out quite so much. And let me play that one time. Listen to what he says. Listen to who he says. He's on the phone. This will be the dispatcher, whoever it is, on the other end of the phone call. Listen closely again.
I'm on the phone with BJ about it. I'll call you right back. All right.
Now, that BJ, that's a familiar name. Should be real familiar to us, right? What's his last name? BJ Sanford?
I'm thinking that might be who they're talking about, but we kind of glossed over that, but I think we've heard that name before, BJ Sanford.
Yeah, I think we did a whole show, and wasn't there some like FBI involved? And honestly, I don't know. I'm not saying this to be mean. Is he still serving jail time over that whole deal with the Bossier PD or the union deal, or do we know his status?
Well, I don't think that's the case anymore.
Okay.
But the point I would make is that with this Red Rover thing, I don't think anybody has. I haven't heard it anywhere, and we missed it. But we were kind of reviewing some of this, and the point of the thing is that BJ Sanford was in the middle of this, and so in this video right here, and we had went back and watched this video again. We were looking for something else, but we came across this, and we heard him say BJ, and we were like, you and I were talking about. We're like, wait a minute, is he talking about BJ Sanford? Well, how many other BJs are there? No, he's talking about BJ Sanford.
Yeah, the time frame fits and everything.
Yeah, and if you listen to the audio, I think that they get off the phone, and then another call is made, and they come back on the phone again, and it's BJ Sanford. I mean, well, it's not BJ Sanford, but what I'm thinking is you're talking about the desk sergeant is communicating with the patrol guy. And I don't know who this officer is, but the desk sergeant is communicating. The desk sergeant says, I'm talking to BJ, and he gets off the phone. A little while later, he's back on the phone with someone else, and I'm thinking that they were talking to BJ as well.
Well, our good friend Wes Marriott brings up an interesting point, and Wes is a former Bossier police officer. He says BJ was a sergeant, guy on the phone is a lieutenant. Interesting inverted chain of command. That might be interesting as well.
Well, I'm wondering here if BJ is in the mix here. Obviously, this guy says BJ is conveying orders, or maybe. I mean, how is BJ in the mix here? And
yeah, what is his role in this? But to answer that question, or maybe kind of answer it, let's listen to the second part of this, which is where I can't remember if the officer on scene calls back in. I think he initiates the phone call back into what number was it? A 741 or 747 number, something like that. You can see it. You can see it in the video. Number. Yeah, you can see it in the video. But let me hit play and let's listen to this part. We've already shown this part before, okay? But just to bring everybody back up to speed.
Hi, man. What's going on?
Okay, do you know what the deal is going on out here?
It originally started with some sort of animal complaint. We're supposed to contact the parish out there to issue a ticket, but we can't do it for the parish because it'll go to parish. Our city was supposed to go out there and do it, but now it turns out there should be a guy named Roddy Taylor or Turner that's out there.
He's gone.
Okay, what did he ask you all to do?
He Bradford, I didn't get a phone call until after this was all over, but Bradford told me that he asked him to write him a ticket for unnecessary noise.
Okay, did he do it? It's coming from the city attorney wants it written.
Somebody from the city attorney wants it written?
Yes.
Okay, because this is
Listen
putting
up.
us in a really bad spot coming out here, issuing an arrest with basically nothing.
Well, Roddy with the attorney, well, it came from the city attorney that we were to assist Roddy Taylor, and he wants a ticket written. We were to write that ticket.
Okay,
So
what was the ticket?
let me stop that for a second, and let me just summarize that real quick. They literally have nothing, according to the officer on scene, according to Wes, that's Sergeant Sproles. Thank you for the updating us on that, Wes, because we don't have the notes on that right now in front of us. According to him, this is making them look bad or putting them in a bad position because they have nothing to write the ticket for, but the city attorney has said, write the ticket. In other words, find something.
Yeah, but look, we covered in another show. We covered about what BJ's role was. BJ was said to be the guy, and it was told to, if I recall correctly in our reporting, he was said to be the guy that to the councilman and to the mayor, to all those that you need anything done, BJ's the guy that you call. That's who you call, right? That was my understanding of what we were told and what we reported. So my question is, we overlooked egregiously. We overlooked that BJ was in the middle of this. I didn't know. So now I'm asking the question, and I'm wondering, what exactly was the full extent of BJ's role? So,
well, I'm no legal scholar or have not been to law school, but if I was an attorney, I might be wanting to talk to BJ.
Well, why would you want to talk to BJ?
Just to see what his involvement might be.
Well, what I'm saying is, why don't you just put a request into the FBI?
Huh? Well, I'm not even going to go into all that, but my faith in the FBI and our men in black has been shaken.
I got to agree. I don't have much faith in them as well, but I think it's already out there in the public sphere that the FBI was monitoring BJ and all of his communications for a long period of time. Even during this, that's out there public information. I think they put a press release out when they arrested him. So if they were in fact monitoring him during this, they were going to have captured all the communications during this time frame. So, and if suddenly all of it disappears, then guess what? I would think that people's faith in the justice system probably is validated to be shaken.
Well, maybe so. Now, Wes said or asked, is he on federal probation? He may be obligated to cooperate with any investigation. And let's listen to that one more time.
I'm on the phone with BJ about it. I'll call you right back.
All right.
And notice he says, I'm on the phone with BJ about it. So it's not like, oh, hey, I'm on the phone with BJ about, somebody running a stop sign. I'll call you back in a few minutes. I'm on the phone with BJ about it. He knows Sproles is calling in and is on site about the Red Rover issue.
Now, I'm not playing conspiracy theorist or nothing here, but I'm thinking, why have we not heard BJ's name before now in any of this? I mean,
Good question.
why is his name not front and center? It almost sounds to me like he may know a little more than everybody else. It also makes me wonder, and I got to check it. I got to go back. I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe we should look at the timelines on when he was arrested, when they went after him. I got to tell you, I'm starting to black helicopters here. Brian Haygood, where you at?
They tend to be a little more quiet than those B-52s flying over my house. Yeah, I may need to go check outside here in a minute. They could land across the street.
Okay, David Crockett is saying, so he gave the Freemason hand signal. Okay, now look, I will plead my ignorance. I don't know the difference between the Freemasons, the jesters, and all that crap. I mean, I hear and have these reports about all these people that are quote unquote jesters. I don't know what that is. I mean, Brad Zagoni, Steve Pinelli. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Oh, there's so many things we could say and so many comments we could make. All right. So, that is our that is our Red Rover update after we literally had the attorney on in the Red Rover case. My, what an interesting coincidence.
I wonder if she's thinking that maybe she ought to have a conversation with somebody by the name of BJ that worked for the city. I don't know how many BJs there are that work for the city, but I'm thinking there's not very many.
Not very many, and not very many that are well known and have been in the news. So, all right, let me put a couple of check marks here on stuff that we have covered. So that's all we've got for tonight on Red Rover. So now we're down to the Charter Commission meeting. And honestly, folks, the City Council meeting, not really anything of any consequence today, I don't think. So maybe we should get to the Charter Commission meeting for a few minutes.
Oh, Michael Ferris says the jesters are an ancillary Masonic body. Look, I don't really know much about all those cats, except for that, I hear their name come up a lot on the Curse of Oak Island. I mean, I got to tell you, I think there's a lot of crap buried up there, and I think the Masons had a lot to do with it. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
They very well may have, and there's the whole theory that they've got the Ark of the Covenant and all sorts of things, but we won't go down that rabbit hole tonight anyway. Maybe we should start Rabbit Hole Watch. Freemason
I don't get to watch the Curse of Oak Island because we're doing this show every Tuesday night, and they show it right when we start our show.
If there were only a thing called DVR or something.
If any family member is listening, so if you want to get me a cool Christmas gift, get me all of the CDs of the past Curse of Oak Islands. That way I can watch them all and get caught up.
Yeah. All right. So do we want to cover the Charter Commission meeting tonight and go ahead and start? I didn't think there was that much, but it was like a nearly 2-hour meeting. And thanks to Wes Marriott for sending us the link. They actually have their own YouTube channel. So that's a good thing.
Look, I got to tell you, I mean, so there's still, 180 plus folks still watching, and we appreciate every one of y'all still watching. I mean, I know Rex and I are boring as crap, and see, like, I am so abusive to y'all. I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking to the side of the camera.
You're like on the warpath tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking it to the side. I mean,
you're scared. To quote Ghostbusters, you're scaring the straights.
It's no disrespect to y'all, but I'm fighting technological stuff here, and this just propagates our amateur journalist status. So,
yeah,
but
we're
with
in
that
transition.
With that said, we have a lot of content, Rex, and I wanted to point out we have been letting a lot of stuff go that we haven't addressed. For example, Susan Gaddy in the school board, when she, we've been putting it off. This makes the third show that we have not put that front and center. She tried to get a position on the school board, and the school board overlooked her. Probably the most qualified person who has put their name forward of anybody ever. And the Bossier Parish School Board just nixed her and overlooked her. And I'm just going to say it because her last name's Gaddy. That's what I'm going to say.
I'm quite sure. And they had put their kids in, what's the private school?
Providence.
Yeah. Or at least a couple of their kids. I can't remember for sure, but that doesn't matter. I mean, they're both products of public school. But all right. So, yeah, we do need to cover that. There's just, I mean, we can go back to 3-hour shows, but I want to make sure that we give adequate time. Oh, speaking of that, and I shouldn't be really doing this 3/4 of the way through the show, but we want to let everybody know that next week we will be having our good friends Michael and Julie Ferris on and having a little discussion over some stuff with them. And so we want to make sure that y'all tune in next week as well.
Yeah, they had a grand opening for their business down there in South Bossier. And they presented, Pelican training. So if you have a business and you need safety training, Pelican training, the Ferrises, they're on the show. You can look them up on Facebook. You hook them up. They got you covered when it comes to training, and research for your employees and your business. I mean, they got their stuff wrapped tight. And I got to tell you, Rex, I mean, look, I have a PEC. A lot of people don't in the oil field. If you're oil field, you recognize PEC. I am a PEC instructor for oil field. And I got to tell you, I went to their grand opening and they started talking shop a little bit. And I got to admit, I learned some stuff from them. And they started talking about some assistance that you can get money back from the state, for certain actions that you take regarding your training. And I said, hey, we got to get them on the show to tell everybody about that. So if you have a business, you can receive those benefits. But with that said, before I finish talking, I got to keep in here before you jump in and cut me off. I got to keep on saying it. Look, we still got, 100, it ain't 200, but it's still almost 170 to 180 people that are watching the show. We need to keep trudging along.
Oh,
and
I agree.
Let's hit the Charter Commission, I think.
Let's do it.
Let's share with everybody what transpired at the Charter Commission, because there were some Moabs that were dropped during this Charter
Mother
Commission.
of all bombs.
Yeah.
Okay.
They did it.
So I've got it queued up here. Let me switch over to the comments deal. All right. So where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the discussion of Richard Ray about the live stream and audio, or I can just summarize it real quick. They did live stream it today. They have their own YouTube channel separate from the city council. So just go to YouTube, and after you get through looking up Bossier watching YouTube and subscribing, by the way, we need about 200 more people to subscribe on YouTube. Then you can look up the Bossier Charter Commission or Bossier City Charter Commission, and you'll find their own YouTube channel. And they did have the video live stream today, and it was about, it's 2 hours and 17 minutes long.
Yeah.
So,
Now, I have to do this. I would be remiss if I do this. Richard Ray, good job today.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Richard Ray did a wonderful job articulating everything that he filled his role good. He really did a good job. So that is compliments. People say that we're jerks and we criticize all the time, but when a hat tip is due, a hat tip is due. I think he did a good job today.
The parts of it that I listened to, I would tend to agree with you. So do we want to start where he's going over the history of the Charter Commission? Because you've watched more of it than I have. Or where do we want to start?
Yeah, I will.
I'll do the live review too, and so that way we can have dual control of it.
Dadgummit, I can't find my live review button, and so you're going to have to take control.
Upper right.
for whatever reason, it's not showing. Anyway.
Okay. All right. That's all right. Just tell me where you
Someone messaged me and said, hey, they said, tell us who was missing. Well, to the best of my knowledge, I only see that there was one member of the Charter Commission that was not present today.
Yeah, they can't get a full deal at any particular meeting, but the new member, and I'm trying to, forgive me for not knowing her name, maybe Colonel Crockett, or somebody can put it in the comments real quick.
Good grief. Come on now. Well, look at that screen. Who is missing?
I know who's missing. Julie, your favorite person, and Juliana is missing. I'm talking about the lady on the far left, our left, camera left, who is the one of the members. She wasn't there last week. Now she's there, and Juliana's missing.
Yeah, Juliana's
It's like playing
missing.
Duck, Duck, Goose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, like she pointed out at the previous meeting, she's too busy to be the secretary. She got too much going on. But apparently this meeting, she was too busy. Yeah, that's right. So go to the 2854 mark, and what we'll start off at is there were some comments talking about the previous Charter Commission, and hit play at the 2854 mark, Rex.
All right, here we go. And just tell me when to stop.
In April of 2004, the matter was submitted to the voters. The as-is proposed changes from Charter Review Commission number 1, and this was, perhaps the most overwhelming vote I've ever heard of probably in Bossier City history. The proposed changes to the charter were it was 93% against on the voters and 7% for. And so the proposed changes out of Charter Commission number 1 were not adopted.
Stop.
That was in April
All
of
right.
2012.
All right. Let me.
Yes, sir. Quick.
Okay.
So you had Richard Ray, the city attorney, he was giving a brief history to the Charter Commission, talking about the last time there was a Charter Commission. And what he was saying was that everything that the Charter Commission put forward to the council to put to the vote of the people failed by a vote of 93% or to 7% supported.
What?
And
so it failed at the ballot box? Is that what he
yes,
said?
Yes, sir. 93% to 7%. Now, in your lifetime, and all of y'all watching, the 180-something people watching, do y'all recall an election ever that you've ever been to, or that you voted in, or that you paid attention to, that you recalled an outcome of 93% to 7%? Do you recall that?
Oh, no.
Ever?
Even when we kicked the school board's rear end in the 2019 tax deal, that was only a 75 to 25 deal.
So countless times, you have to beg the question, how could, if you formed a charter commission and they put forward issues to revise the city charter and it failed to pass, 93 to 7, how could it have been so lopsided? What could have happened that would have made the outcome be so lopsided?
I don't know. Maybe we need a historian, but I would say that, it's one of those deals where the city councilmen absolutely weren't for it. And so, they used the power of their magic wands to sprinkle pixie dust out there.
But for everybody watching, the city councilmen aren't on this. The mayor and the city councilmen aren't on a charter commission. So how is it that they could have affected this?
Well, because the charter, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the charter commission they only have the power to present this to the city council, right?
Well, they vote as a body for items to be forwarded to the council to be put on the ballot. And whatever they put forward, the council can't amend it, but they put it forward and then the council puts it to the electorate for a vote.
All right. But maybe in this video I'll get educated, but correct me if I'm wrong. So if the Charter Commission makes a recommendation, and it's not just for the changes or amendments to it, it's the entire charter, by the way. So when it's on the ballot, it's not for a particular amendment to it, if I understand correctly. It's for the whole charter. But just because the commission makes a recommendation to the city council, does the city council have to approve it, or can they just stonewall it and drop it?
No. If the
Okay.
commission puts it forward to them, they have to put it to the public for a vote.
Okay.
And it will be the whole charter with an amendment to it. And Weston Marriott, that little post that you put of Weston's, is absolutely 100% correct. Alice Boyer, correct. What happened in that previous was the poison pill. So one of the members, and in that commission, it had to be more than one of the members, but one of the members brought a provision to increase the water bill. And
Why would
a majority of the commission, all in cahoots, agreed to put this provision forward, and it was called the poison pill. It was called the poison pill to kill any of the other amendments that were what the public wanted, so that because they knew that if you put that to the vote of the people, they were going to vote against it. And the reason is because everything that comes from this commission, everything, the good and the bad, it all goes into one vote. You don't get to vote on each individual thing and get to pick and choose what you like, what you don't like. It's you get the whole enchilada or not. And that's what is kind of the thinking here. So I would say jump to the 4239 mark, because Shane Cheatham at this point, he comes out and he kind of lays the law down here a little bit.
All right, here we go.
And again, we're probably all going to have some differing opinions, and that's great, and we can have conversation. I think the whole reason that all 8 of us are sitting up here today is because of term limits. I believe the council, put this together because the people, almost 3,000 people, signed and said they wanted term limits, and that's kind of held up in legal stuff, date of birth, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard that. So my thought process, we've talked about having meetings and having public hearings. We've got 3,000 people that have already said we want term limits, and that's kind of why this was put together. I found out this week, that the timeline, if we want to be on a November election, is the end of February. That's a pretty fast timeline. And no one else, I think the mayor was the only one who put a resolution up when he submitted his names. Unless any of you could tell me that you've been presented any items by the people that appointed you. As we stand right now, we have only one item put in front of us, by the mayor, and nothing from any of the council members. I would hate for us to not listen to what those 3,000 people have said to us by signing their signature to term limits. And again, and we go back to the first one, and I made a comment that a water raise was put in there. Why do you think the water raise was put in there? I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but common sense tells me that water raise was put in there so none of that stuff would pass. And my concern is if we do take a long time and pull out different things that council members want that they haven't told us about yet, and they were the ones who passed this, put this up back in October, that there could be items put in that purposely delay what the people have asked for with the 3,000 signatures for term limits. So it's just something I want us to think about. I want to be diligent in what we do, but I also know the only reason we're sitting up here is because 3,000 people were diligent in saying we would like term limits for the city of Bossier. So, however we move forward with that, I think we need to have a plan to be swift and also be diligent in what we do. Thank you.
So
Okay, stop
I'll
it.
stop it for a second.
Stop it. I mean, God, I'm having to bite my tongue and about bite it off and swallow it here, Rex.
Well, I mean, of course, Shane's right on the mark with what he's saying. But we
Yes.
all
Yes.
we all know that this is a delaying tactic to.
No,
Well,
it's not.
not really a
No,
delaying
it's
tactic.
not. For
Right.
all of you out there with that are impressionable, what you need to take away from this is that the council called a charter review commission to be able to get term limits the way that you wanted it and the way that you signed the petition on the ballot for you to vote on, because the Term Limits Coalition couldn't get it right. That's why you have this here today. And
Where's the face palm emoji?
They're going to work to get it done. Oh, by the way,
it's for the good of the citizens and constituents and what you wanted. That's what you're saying.
It's only going to take 18 months. And oh, by the way, that won't happen in enough time for you to be able to vote on it so that the existing politicians won't be limited in them being able to serve upwards of 30 years. No, not at all.
Well, I thought duck season was over. Do you still have on your hip waders? It's getting deep.
Good. We don't want to start talking ducks. We'll lose half the people watching.
Well, or crawfish season or whatever. You got your hip waders on because it's getting deep in here. I'll put this comment up there. Our good friend David Jones, who loves Shane so much, says, Shane, how many people voted for you and you quit on them? I would like to point out that that's a red herring, David. Although we're great friends, or I think so. That's a red herring, and it's just flopping all around the floor. That has nothing to do with term limits.
No, nothing at all. Okay.
So, am I going to have to ad lib and keep everybody entertained while you're looking around in the sky?
No. So while you were talking, I did get my review going, and I'm going to go ahead and start at another interesting moment, and I will take over from here. I wanted to point out that the future of Bossier City has stepped to the mic and had a few comments and an interesting question, and I'm going to start it.
She looks familiar. Is that Lisa?
That is Lisa.
Lisa Thursday Johnson. Lisa Friday Johnson.
That's right. There was no way she was going to allow, this charter commission meeting to go forward without her addressing the importance of us having bungee jumping off of the Jimmy Davis Bridge.
Oh, great. I've forgotten about that.
She was protecting our interests.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, hang on.
Okay.
I just have a point of clarification. Mr. Ray, whenever you're doing your history, and so this is kind of,
and can I say, I didn't know she was going to be here. This is the real historian, so yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't know about that.
I know you were here.
But I just, and so you had talked about amendments to the city charter, and you read to us the number 4, the Charter Review Commission. So if we can go back to that, I'm just curious about a point of clarification for this. So it reads, the Charter Review Commission, that's this body, will be presented a draft of suggested charter changes jointly drafted by the mayor and city council members, which is what I heard you say. And then it is what it reads.
And that's what's in our current charter.
Yes.
Right.
And the draft of suggested changes shall represent a coordinated recommendation of the mayor and city council, but will indicate, if applicable, areas of disagreement. And then the commission shall develop proposed amendments to that draft that the city, mayor and city council members propose to them.
Correct.
So the proposes to the charter, because then you ended your comments with their recommendations for changes. I understood that as this group. So is it the mayor and the city council members propose changes to the charter and then it comes to them for review, or they this review commission, in addition to the mayor and city council, can also make proposed changes? Because I'm not reading it as that.
Yes, it's a good question. So what the mayor and the council will present their recommendations. And if let's say on the IT issue, if the mayor and the council agree that ought to be an administrative level department head, then that's going to show that both the mayor and the council agree on that. Okay, I think there's going to be a lot of areas of agreement, and it'll note it in it. Then, but if there's some area of disagreement, then it'll be noted. But then that set of recommendations will come to this group, and then this group can accept those. They can reject them. They can add more. They can take away. They have the authority to ultimately decide on what is put back to the council to then put to the voters.
So for an example, this is just for me to be.
I'm going to stop right there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That she may be the next mayor. Anything's better than Tommy.
Well, I got to tell you, I have a different take on it.
Uh-oh. Imagine that.
I don't think she's going to run for mayor. I think, and I may be wrong, I think that she's done thrown in with one of the teams.
Well, I got to tell you, based on her analysis of that, she's fully qualified to be city attorney. I don't even care if she's an attorney.
Well, I'm thinking she's bucking for CAO. I think she's going after Amanda Nottingham's job.
Maybe so. What say you, David Jones?
I think she's done thrown in with somebody, and I don't know. I'm just my gut. That's what I'm thinking here.
I gotta say, I would hate for her to be CAO with Tommy. If that happens, Lisa, we got to talk about PR and marketing.
I mean, look. You had Joe Biden and Kamala. I mean, we could be looking at, Jeffrey and Lisa Johnson. I mean, we don't have tickets in Bossier, but I'm telling you, I'm calling it like I see it.
Maybe so. Darn it, Shane. Look, even though, David Jones is throwing out red herrings right and left and getting it smelling all fishy around here, I do agree with him to a point. Dadgummit, Shane, you should have been CAO. All right. Or at least stayed as city councilman, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead, and we're going to try to get to some of the people that speak that don't normally speak. And let's get to the president of the Association of WASP, and let's see what he has to say.
Yeah, to review the charter and to make any changes that we feel are necessary. But the process started with the city council, who then said, or were asked, submit ideas of what you'd like to see us discuss. The only thing that's been submitted to us is from the mayor, who suggested that I'd like to see term limits put in on the table to be discussed by the commission.
But that's completely separate from this lawsuit.
Correct.
It is.
Right. Completely separate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
So,
but let me throw this out there, Duke. So I want to address a couple of proton mails we got. I'm going to keep this very generic and very brief, Duke. We are aware of those proton mails. We are aware of those past issues, and we right now don't see their relevance. All right. Now we got the soundbite. Go ahead.
Well, what I would point out here is that the chairman of this charter commission is they were having some deliberations. Shane Cheatham had pointed out that the fact is here, the only reason that a charter commission was called was because of the over 3,000 signatories on the term limits petition to affect term limits in Bossier City, forced the Bossier City Council to try to address it. And I would argue, look, they're fighting it in court. As you know, Colonel Crockett there in the video, you and I were the people at the forefront of the term limits coalition movement. And we did something that's never been done in Bossier City before. We got all the pre-required signatures to effect a change to the Bossier City Charter. And to be honest with you, I'm just going to say it like it is. And if a lot of y'all don't like a cuss word, y'all go ahead and stick your fingers in your ear at this time, because I'm going to say it. We kicked the Bossier City Council's ass on term limits. We kicked their ass in PR. We kicked their ass in every way, shape, form, or fashion. The only thing they had to fall back on was lawfare, and that's tied up in court. Predictable. Okay. Right. So I would contend, and Shane Cheatham articulated this, that the only reason you have a charter commission today is this is a method of them saving face. This is, here's the play. They say, well, those term limits jackwagons, that means me, of course, and you and Colonel Crockett, all of us, we were too stupid to get it right. And so therefore, to get right what we expose as being the will of the public, they're going to put a charter commission together so that it can be done right. And so therefore, all of y'all see this show going on of this charter commission, and that proves that the city council are just trying to do what all of y'all want. They just want to do it, but they just want to make sure that it's done right. But oh, by the way, they can't help the fact that it's going to be delayed so long, like to the tune of 18 months, that, oh, by the way, it'll enable them to be able to have another term and push them, pushing 30 years in elective office.
Oh, look.
All of you watching, whether you agree with me or not, should a politician be in office for 30 years? Is that what the founders intended? One of the people who will be right here on this board, I'm going to say it, they even said, they talked about the founders. They're going to be one of the ones that are going to push this past the deadline to get it affected. They cited the founders. They cited the founders, but they're going to be one of the ones that the people expressed an interest in having one particular thing affected in Bossier City government, and they're not going to do it. They're going to push it across the line and see to it that it doesn't happen by way of this. So it's all wag the dog for all of y'all.
Well, but look, here's the thing, Duke, and I'll just go back to, oddly enough, the Cypress District. We're playing the long game, all of us. So this is a straight up message to the city council and to the good old boys and to you, Queen David. We're playing the long game, not the short game. And I promise you, we're going to outlast you and eventually win and eventually get our way. It's the same thing. It's the same playbook. We're just biding our time, and we'll go along, and that gives us plenty of content to talk about each week. And every time you guys make horses' asses of yourself at the city council meetings, well, we just have more to talk about, and get on the news and talk about it on the dinosaur media and the news. So it's all working out. All right, what's next?
We're here to stay.
Yeah.
Well, so look, introductions. We've got faces on this charter commission. A lot of you may or may not know. One of the people that folks have the name Morehart, people know. You know that because they're involved, or there is a Morehart name involved in almost every governmental body around here. I don't. Personal opinion, I don't think that's by chance, and I don't think that's by chance now that there is a Morehart name on this charter commission. But we'll reserve judgment and give the benefit of the doubt till the end of this process, and we'll see what becomes of it. But this lady with the last name of Morehart, I got to tell you, I put in the notes, she asks a really relevant question, and let's hear what it is. And of course, Shane Cheatham chimes in, and I got to tell you, I think he brings the heat. Here we go.
He's good at that. Let's go. Let's listen.
I don't know if we need a motion or how we need to move this forward. But I think as a body, we need to determine what our goal is now. Is it to try to get something at that February deadline, or is it to do the complete review? And if that requires a motion, I'm prepared to make it. I just don't know how this exactly works.
I agree, and I think we need that before we set our meetings, because if we're shooting for February, it might be more.
Well, I also think that motion also depends on how fast the council gets us some information. If they get us some information next week, there's a possibility of still working through that. If they don't give us that information and they hold it off, then, we would have to push that back.
But not just.
To bring everybody up to speed, so what they're talking about, the city attorney or the assistant city attorney had already brought them with a little bit of a history lesson. And he said, basically, if you want to get something on the ballot, you've got the November election where there will be more people coming out to vote in the presidential election in November than any other election. If you really want to get what the true intent of the voters, where you will get the most highest turnout of any election, you got to have something on the ballot for the November election, if that's what your goal is. But to do that with this process, that means that this body has to have proposals submitted to the city council by the end of February for it to be able to go through the process, which means it would have to go to the bond commission for approval. It's got to be publicized by the city, like in the Bossier Press, going through all the hurdles. You got to have it done by the end of February. And that's what they're deliberating a little bit here. And Morehart's question, really, really struck at it. And Shane, he lays the wood down here, and let's pick up right here where he was.
There's no doubt it will.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a reason we don't have items already presented to us. And I know you don't want to hear me. Some of you have not been involved in Bossier City politics, Bossier Parish politics. So I'm going to give you a quick wrap of what I've been reading this charter for 5 years. There's so many ordinances that violate this charter, it would be mind-blowing. But as you notice at the first meeting, that's not our job to fix that, because a lawyer and a judge has to fix that. So we can't do anything about those ordinances. So we could make changes to this charter, but if there's an ordinance in there that violates the charter, there's nothing we can do about it. And so the frustrating thing that we're going to find as y'all dig into this, you're going to find things as you're looking and say, well, let's see about changing that. It might already be changed in an ordinance, and we can't do anything about that. So, yes, due diligence. Yes, I've been reading this charter for 5 years. I know there's a lot of things that go against the charter. But we can't fix that because we're not lawyers and judges. But what we can fix is I don't think the people of Bossier City care about an IT director being a director position or a regular position. I don't think they care about that. I think it's a great idea as a former member of the Bossier Parish School Board and someone that comes to these meetings. I think it's a great idea to have that. But are we going to get high-fived walking down the street from the people of Bossier because we made it a director of IT? Probably. They probably don't care, just like they don't vote. The items that the people have already told us they cared about is what's in front of us now. And hopefully we'll get some more items that can be influential and that aren't already have an ordinance in direct violation of what the charter has. So,
what he's saying is we can make all the changes to the charter that we want to make, but there's so many ordinances that contradict the charter already. The changes we make on the charter aren't going to make any difference. Almost as if us being here, what's the point?
It's a dog and pony show.
It's a dog and pony show. I think that was what maybe the other members of the commission haven't come to that conclusion yet, but I'm suspect that that's where they're going to find themselves at.
Right. I would tend to agree. I mean, the whole thing is a tactic to delay And I'm just using that term very loosely, but the whole thing is a tactic to delay the inevitable, which is going to be term limits.
That's exactly right. So I want to fast forward. David Johnson speaks. He hadn't spoke during this whole thing. He's been pretty reserved, pretty quiet. He speaks, and then immediately upon him speaking, Lee Jeter speaks, and Lee Jeter hadn't said a whole lot as well too. So let's listen to David Johnson.
Again, for
David,
Shane
go
and
ahead.
maybe for the
Your comment.
council, what concerns me is we're here, we were picked and nominated to be here and serve the city to the best of our ability. What concerns me, if we're here working on the charter and we're not adhering to that, the council's not, and they're making ordinances at will, it sounds like, to change the charter, are we just not spinning our wheels? What, do we not have a constitution? If we have a charter, why aren't we respecting what's written? Why are we deviating from that? That's just a question I have.
That's a good question.
You know, we're going to give you 18 months of our time, and like Vicki said, we could be doing other things. If our time's going to be spent and we come up with a solution that we think is going to be better for our children and our grandchildren and to grow this city in the future, if we come up with something and they make changes and go around it, it doesn't matter who's in office 10 years from now.
It doesn't.
If you're circumventing the charter at will because you have an agenda that you want to drive through that day, then what are we doing here? Is anybody got a comment on that?
Ding, 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 ding.
I got to tell you, that
finally somebody asked the right question.
That might be the most consequential statement of this whole dog and pony show.
Yeah. I think we'll have to make that into its own video clip with transcription.
Well, Lee Jeter had something to say. He doesn't say a whole lot, but he had some comments. He did really good. Let's listen to Lee.
Mr. Jeter?
Mr. David, what I think, and we have to make this charter strong and fluid to take away those independent powers from individuals that may get elected in the future from being able to circumvent this charter. The charter gives certain duties and responsibilities to mayor and other departments, and if we have a government body that's creating ordinances or resolutions to circumvent the charter, then we have to make sure that this charter is written in such a manner and such a strong document that no entity elected in the future can circumvent this charter.
That's what I was talking about, being a devil's advocate.
We need to spend our.
So, you know, look, I think everybody on this committee has these ideas, and I think it's pure that they want to create a charter. They want to do something bigger than themselves. I think that they want to, but they want to do something really big. But I got to be honest with you, I think the deck's stacked against them. I don't think they can prevail.
Don't say. You don't say.
They can't prevail. And I think they maybe in the back of their mind and their subconscious, they know it. And they, right now, what they're doing is they're trying to deliberate what to do about it, because they really don't know what to do about it. They know it's like the deep state in Washington, D.C. Everybody, we all know that both the Democrats and Republicans are all ganged up against all of us out here on Main Street. It don't matter your party affiliation, but the bottom line is that farce of the parties in D.C., it's against all of us.
Well, it is, but look, so Wes brings up a good point in his comment right here, and it's one that I made many times. That was a great commentary. It would be nice if our charter had a penalty built in for legislative violations of the charter, enforceable by any citizen, with removal from office being mandatory and maybe referral to the AG for malfeasance. Give it some teeth. The problem with all of that is, Wes, as you well know, lawsuits are a weapon that can be used, but they're also a deterrent, because filing lawsuits ain't cheap. Even if you are able to recover your filing fees and attorney's fees, we all know Jill Sessions is the highest public or paid public official in the parish because of those court fees. They're a self-sustaining office based on those fees. And so, unfortunately, those filing fees and all that sort of thing and court costs, even if you recover, that's a pretty good cash outlay for people, and it's a pretty good deterrent. And so it's like I always say, it might be illegal, but not until you sue them.
Hey, look, and Jill is a friend of mine. I love Jill to death, but
I do too.
Jill's out there shilling for these SS&S machines, which might get us kicked off of here, but they've proven in cases across the country of being connected to the internet when they say they're quote unquote not connected to the internet. And as well that, oh, they give you a voter verified paper trail to make you feel all good and fuzzy inside when you cast your vote, that's how your vote was registered. But I think it was a case in Pennsylvania, can't remember the county, where actually the paper printed out that you voted one way, but it actually recorded it on the machine in a different way. But no, Jill is carrying that water. Sorry, Jill, had to say it. You can come on and dispute me if you want. Love to have you here.
Look, Jill and I'm not friends like we go out to dinner type friends or anything like that, but we've always had a very friendly relationship. But I didn't say anything that was not true. It's all public information, as is every public official's salary. Okay.
That's right. That's right. So look, as far as the dropping bombs, I mean, look, Wes was there. He dropped his own bomb. I think this cut where we have it time stamped, I think they were having some deliberations on open meeting laws. Imagine that. Talking about, can they all get together and have an email chain and talk about ideas or share ideas? And I mean, look,
Richard Ray already set that precedent the first meeting.
Well, look, Wes puts an exclamation point on all of this, and when you hear Wes speak, I mean, I'm not going to be able to do justice in what Wes says, but the point is how do you have a conversation? You know, if we're all talking about a subject, and I say, you know, Rex, I have this idea, I think this, and you say about what I think, you say, well, I disagree with that. Do I not know how you're going to vote if we have to vote on whether we agree or disagree with it?
Right.
I mean, how do you delineate whether you were having a quorum or not having a quorum if I'm talking about a subject to delineate how you're going to be on it or not?
Or the all-important walking quorum. But anyway, let's hear what Wes has to say.
But why don't you just make it easy and just do it in the open in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
Would you like to make a comment?
Yes, Mr. President. Wes Marriott, 211 Shadow Ridge, Bossier City. Madam Commissioner, I really appreciate those comments. And just like you said earlier about playing the devil's advocate and gathering what-if scenarios to peer forward into the future, your question about open meeting laws and, Madam Commissioner, your questions about public records, I do feel, as the devil's advocate, I have to remind this body that you are asking for legal advice on public records law and open meetings law from the legal representative for an organization that is currently being sued for violating the open meetings law and the public records law. And I consider myself a little bit of a subject matter expert on this because I'm the one suing them. So just for full disclosure, you're asking for advice on things that I feel the person you're asking in the
I can hear Richard Ray sitting over there going, don't.
People who are not following those laws already. So as a resource, I would like to, and I apologize for interrupting, but I do want to point you to and I can email this to every commissioner. There is a very good guide published by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor, like I had referenced earlier, on open meetings law and the public records law. So
I'm just going to stop right there, but class was in session and Richard Ray didn't even go there. He didn't even respond to anything of what Wes said, but
I mean, what's he going to say?
I got to tell you, when he said, you know, as a subject matter expert, I about spit my tea out. Because I guess that is accurate. He probably is.
Good one, Wes. Very good.
And okay, the last consequential thing.
All right, but before you get to that, I do want to make one point though. I want to say that this whole meeting has been very professional as far as, notice there's no drama in the commentary. Even the stuff Wes is saying, There's no damn point of order yelled or any of that stupid business. So
No, none of it.
I want to give credit to the commissioners and to Richard Ray, as wrong as he usually is, that they're handling it very well. All right.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with it. Now, there was only one thing, and I may be totally reading this wrong, so we're going to throw this out here to everybody watching. And I don't know, I'm probably wrong here, but what is y'all's take on these comments right here? Listen to this, and I'm not even going to say what it is. Y'all tell me if this sounded funny to y'all.
Can we go ahead and set these town hall meetings? Is that possible? So that we can get that out to the public and they can actually make plans if they need, like where their district, if we want to do it by district. To me, that needs to happen very quickly because I know what I think in my head about a lot of issues.
Correct.
I know how I'm going to vote on, whatever, when I go to the polls, I'm going to vote whatever way is in my head. I think that we need to get the input from the citizens now because there may be something that we don't know about and that they haven't shared with the small amount of people that are here, or maybe their councilmen because maybe that comfort level, they didn't have access or whatever it is.
Do I need to play it again?
No, play it again, Sam. No, not really.
Did you pick up on it?
So, well, I was kind of watching the comments, but she said something to the effect of she already knew how she was going to vote.
That's what I heard. I'm just wondering if anybody else did you pick up on the same? If her mindset is already predetermined, she already knows what she thinks, she already knows how she's going to vote, then
but let me give her the benefit of the doubt. So let me borrow from Wes here and play devil's advocate for a minute and put my little horns on. I think she might have been referring to using that as an illustration or example that when she goes to the ballot box, she already knows what she's going to vote based on what she's been thinking about or what's going through her mind. And so I think, but I didn't listen to all of it 100%, that she might be saying, hey, we need to try to start initiating these town hall meetings and get that ball rolling so that we can get feedback from people. Now, that's my take, but again, I was watching the comments and not listening to it 100%.
Maybe so. And I'm not saying it's one way or the other. I don't know, but I got to tell you, when I heard the words coming out of her mouth, I hesitated. I
picked up on it. Even reading the comments, I picked up on when she said that.
It's like, oh, her mind is already made up. Well, I got to tell you, if her mind is already made up, I'm dying to know, what does she think about term limits? Even though, 3,000 plus signatures, as Weston pointed out, that, the Colonel and you and me and Haygood and a lot of folks collected signatures, Shane Cheatham, when we got all of those. I mean, granted, we didn't hit 50,000 people, but we hit 3,000 people. Wes pointed that out. Great. Yeah. I mean, but I'm just curious, are all those people considerations in what she has in her head, and that she already knows how she's going to vote? Is that a consideration, or do they need to have these town hall meetings?
Well, wait a minute.
So that they can dismiss the 3,000 people that have already expressed what their will was.
But wait a minute. You're not asking the right question. The right question is very simple. Let me read Wes's comment, and then I'll tell you what the question is. Wes says, listening to her comments in totality and in the last meeting, she's against term limits. Well, it's a simple thing. That was Lisa Wilhite, correct?
Don't know. I have no idea who she is.
Well, okay, so that's Lisa Wilhite. Who appointed her?
Don't know.
Jeffrey.
No, well, imagine that. So it's
That
not
is the
about,
question to ask.
so she can advocate to have town hall meetings all she wants, but the bottom line is she already knows how she's going to vote. So why would she promote the facade of having town hall meetings to be considerate of what the public wants when her mind is already made up?
Yeah.
She already knows.
I'll be shocked if she doesn't, show the same disdain that my city councilman, who I've never actually talked to, has. If she's not going to go the same direction as the one who appointed her, which is literally my city councilman, Jeff Free. I think that's correct.
Yeah. So for them to advocate that, hey, we want to fix everything that's all Bossier City, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. That
what
they want that, yeah, you heard me. That
no, I heard
they
the bullshit stuff, but I didn't hear what the context around it was.
Oh, I don't know what the why of that was, but the bottom line is the only reason this thing, it's a wag the dog to all of y'all. It's to say that, oh, we hear you, that you want to make changes. So here, we started this charter commission, and it's going to do nothing. It's going to drag it out because all they care about is getting past the next election day. They're going to say to you, we started a charter commission so that we could give the opportunity to get term limits in there right. We did what y'all wanted. And you know what? Oh, just by chance, it didn't happen in time, and we get to be there for more years. Sorry, that's just the way it panned out.
Yeah.
That's what it's all wag the dog.
Yeah,
it's all wag the dog. And look, I'm going to say it. That's David Montgomery. That's Bubba Williams. That's Jeff Darby. And that's Jeff Free. They don't want to let go. They don't want to get out of the way. They want to retain power. They want to stay in there for as long as you folks will allow them to continue to be in there. They don't ever want to go. They want to stay there forever.
Yeah.
That's all this is to it.
Yeah. They want to grow old and gray and whatever there. And anyway, I guess they want to be the Bidens of the city council, unfortunately. All right. What else, Mr. Lowry? We've got the city council meeting, which again, nothing really happened there. Honestly, they did talk about what's her name, Lynn Bryant, with the Keep Bossier Beautiful. She gave a report on trash and litter, and kind of interesting numbers if you want to watch that part of it.
Okay, so we still got over 100 people, and I mean it's 130, 140 folks, and you guys are the bomb. So look, me and Rex, for weeks now, we've been putting content off. We have got a backlog of content to tell y'all about things that have happened within Bossier. Now, Rex, how long has this show been going now? What are we got to be pushing 2 hours.
This show, oh yeah, we're at 2 hours 32 minutes right now.
Okay, so what I'm getting at with y'all, we got tons of stuff to share with you. We just don't have the time to put it out there. Now there's still 130 something folks. I propose, Rex, let's work through. The folks are here, they're wanting to hear it. Let's work through this content, but I say we give them the choice of what content do they want us to share with them. Let's get it off the plate. Let's clear the plate.
Well, shall we go to Gaddy?
Well, let's ask everybody watching. They're the loyal people that are here, wanting to hear what's going on. Do y'all want to hear about the school board and Gaddy? As you know, Ryan Gaddy's wife, Susan Gaddy, she put her name in the hat to be the appointee to the vacant school board position. And there's a little bit of a story there. We've been putting it off for a couple of shows. The Cypress District, there was a meeting that was held out there, and those guys out there, they were, my gosh, they were kissing ass and taking names to get y'all's vote to redo their tax out there. Now, as soon as you pass the tax renewal, they're going to thumb their nose right back at you. And, we didn't have the video of that meeting to show you how egregious the ass kissing was, but we've had it queued up, ready to go for y'all. But there's been so much other stuff going on, we haven't been able to share it with you. So in essence, you have your choice between the Gaddy school board stuff, the Cypress events that went on out there, because you're going to have to vote on this tax. So
we've had several votes for Gaddy. So I've got that queued up, I think, to the right spot. So give me just a second here, and let me click a few buttons here and see if I can get that on the screen.
Well, and look, don't forget. I mean, we've got the Walk on Water watch. We've got to report on Walk on Water this week. I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't report on our good congressman. And then, as well, what are we going to do about this cockroach of the week thing? Because we've been failing everybody on that.
So we've still got over 120 people watching right now across all the platforms. So let me throw a couple things out there. First of all, we need you to comment, put in the comment cockroach, and then hit your space bar one time and put a name that you want to nominate as cockroach of the week. We're going to go through all these comments in a couple of days, and we're going to decide based on the names that you put in the comments. Now, you don't necessarily have to do it tonight. We would like for you to, if you already can think of somebody. If you want to think about it and do it tomorrow, that's fine. But before next week, we need you to put in the comments of this show the word cockroach, so I can search for it real easy, and the name that you suggest. Also, I want to point out, because again, we still have 120 people watching. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We are going to start stepping on the gas pedal. We've already kind of alluded to this before, but we're probably going to fire back up Louisiana Watch and go to multiple shows a week and some other things that we have planned, and we'll reveal some more of that. Okay. With that said, so I've got the school board session and Susan Gaddy queued up. Shall I hit play?
Let's roll with it.
All right. Tell me when to stop.
School system and for the educational process. That's what I've been drawn to ever since college years. And I feel like that's where my area of expertise lends itself to be able to serve the community well. And I always consider being a public servant an honor. And this would be the one way that I feel like I would feel comfortable doing so.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Now, I'm guessing that you have it pulled up via the YouTube link. So you're going to have to jump to the 26, 27 something seconds mark. And that would be where you would need to hit go here. So what's happening here, folks, is you have Susan Gaddy, who had threw her name into the hat for a vacancy on Adam Bass's vacancy on the school board. She was seeking to be appointed to this position. And so she gets up there at the little table, you can see amongst all of them looking down on her and asking various questions. And one of the first questions right out of the gate is political in nature. I'm going to frame it this way. They ask her a question regarding teacher pay and whether she believes teacher pay should be linked to performance or not.
Interesting. All right, so we're at the 26, 27 mark, so I'll just hit play. Let's go.
Mr. Newman, Ms. Gaddy, I appreciate you being here tonight. Would you tell me your opinion of merit pay raises for teachers? Linking a teacher's pay to student test scores.
I could give you an initial impression of it. I can tell you that I haven't looked at it in depth, but I do know that teachers feel a lot of pressure from a lot of mandates and a lot of things. And while I believe it's important to hold persons accountable for the job that you ask them to do, there is a delicate balance between doing that and having teachers feel so much pressure for a score that they receive on a test that they are anxiety ridden and unable to do their job at the best of their abilities. So would I be opposed to it completely? Not necessarily. Do I think it's something you need to go all, it needs to be balanced. Does that make sense? Or am I?
Certainly.
So stop it right there. So I got to tell you, I think that was a great politically correct answer.
She just went right down the middle and walked that fence like a champ. Good job, Susan.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I don't think she answered the question wrong. I don't think she answered it right. I think she answered it right down the middle. But
very, very eloquently. So, Susan, you should have run for senator, not Ryan. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Okay, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm going to resist. But I gotta tell you, I mean, why is the school board asking whether or not on an issue that she has no control over, that school board has no control over, teacher pay, in comparison to performance? Can that school board do anything about whether or not teacher pay is tied to performance? I thought, and perhaps I'm wrong and everybody can correct me in the media, I thought that was a legislative issue.
I'm trying to remember back to my school board tax 2019 days if we did any research on that. I don't think.
Well,
dug into that issue. My knee-jerk reaction would be it may be legislative only, but I want to say the school board could control that.
I don't.
I'm going to do like Susan. I'm walking down the middle with my answer. I'm not really sure.
Well, I'm pretty confident that that is legislatively governed, and I don't think that the local school board has any determination on pay as it relates to performance. I don't think they control any of that. So the reason I say that is I almost feel like that was a gotcha question.
Well, it was, but look, it's like I have the litmus test for everybody, even if they're on the school board, to me, is what's your stance on the Second Amendment? The school board has zero control over that. I mean, maybe a little bit of influence on policies, as far as possession of guns near a school campus or whatever, but that's legislative too. So it's kind of that. I think they're asking her that just to see what her response is. They knew they weren't voting for her anyway, but they thought it sounded intelligent, an intelligent question. She did give an intelligent response, and I felt like an honest response. So it's just kind of one of those going along with it deals.
You're probably right. My opinion is it was calculated. That was my opinion.
So probably so.
Let's jump to the 29 mark, 2900 something seconds.
Right,
and
jump up there.
So we get right to business with cutting heads right out of the gate. We go right straight for the throat here.
No doubt about that. Looking at some of the personal stuff, I know that young Charlotte, she is in private school, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As an advocate on a board member, if you become a board member, how do we retain our students, and how do we, and I'm not necessarily asking the question you personally and her, but anybody, because the why isn't important, but how do we as a board, if you are to come on and join us, do we retain students? Don't lose the best of our students, like a young Charlotte, to a private school.
Well, and I don't mind necessarily doing that.
Hold up.
Answering that.
Yeah, I could. She should have just blasted them right there. She should have said, "I'm a subject matter expert on what you jackasses need not do to keep so that people like me do put our kids in public schools." But anyway.
Well, here's what I want to point out. Now, look, you know what? Susan Gaddy for those of you watching, because there's going to be people, just like in the First Church thing earlier, people were criticizing me, saying, "Oh my gosh, he's carrying the First Church water."
You
You
take
know,
that
whatever
saddle off your back anytime now, Duke.
whatever the crap is saying. So now I'm fixing to give y'all another one. You're going to be able to say, "Oh, he's carrying the Gaddy's water. Duke is turned to the dark side," whichever side that is. Whatever.
Purple
Okay.
side.
But I'm just wondering if all these jackwagons on the school board know that Miss Gaddy here, and look, I can tell you, in all of my life, me and Susan Gaddy, we have never had a conversation. I've never spoke to her. Ever. Rex. Never. Okay. But what I do know about Miss Gaddy, and I'm not saying she's a good person, bad person. I don't know her to know whether she is a good or person, bad person. I have no idea. No idea. But what I do know is she's no dummy. I do know that she graduated from the public school system in Bossier with top honors. She was one of the most educated people that come out of the system. And, you know, if she probably knows more than all of y'all up there on that board combined. And for you to take a shot at her because she made the choice to put one of her kids into private school versus public school, and then ask her to articulate, and it was smooth the way this question was asked. I mean, it was it was smooth. It was as smooth as you could put it forward, and I like the person who asked the question. I do. But the public school, look, whether you realize it or not, you've got a broken model. You can't protect the kids. I mean, just face it. That's the way it is. And you can try to carry this water all you want, but your model is broken and it's going to continue to fail. And it's probably going to ultimately fail to private schools, charter schools, and all. That's the way it's going. And homeschooling, because, and it's not your fault. I'm not blaming you. It's not your fault, but just the way politics, the way the system is designed, it's all falling apart. And you have too many limitations, too many restrictions to where there's no way you can continue to function. The only choice that parents have is to take their kids into a private setting to where those environments that they want their kids to be in can be controlled. That's the reality. And for you to try to pose to her, one of the most educated people to come out of the public system in Bossier Parish, and it is I'm just going to say it what it is. It's a criticism of her for her making the decision for taking her kid to a private school to protect her kid in a way that you can't protect her, and veil it the way that you did. It's just wrong. It's wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you on that. Although I agree that it is a fair enough question. I would have asked it much more simply. Just said, well, you know, you're wanting to be on the Bossier Parish School Board, and this obviously is a public school body, governing body. So explain to us what the reasoning was for placing one of your children in private school as opposed to public school.
Okay, so
that's a fair question.
Well, is it fair? Is it fair that
so.
her? Okay, so what if her child was being bullied?
I didn't say. I said the
question.
No,
you said it's a fair question.
I said, no,
okay.
I know exactly what I said because I can hit the rewind. Well, I can't. We don't have
well,
rewind.
you can hit,
I said the question is fair. Oh, you were on the side of Darth Jerkovich tonight. I don't even want to hear it from you.
I'm just.
It is a fair question.
No, it's not a fair question.
Sure it is. Why is it not?
I don't agree with it. You're going to use somebody. Kids are off limits.
Kids are not. She's literally applying for a damn school board job or appointment.
Okay.
Literally, that deals with children in public school. The kids
All
aren't
right.
off
Well,
limits.
well, look, you've got no right to say anything about the Bossier Parish school system
Why?
because you don't have any kids in Bossier Parish school system.
I don't any longer, but I pay taxes.
No, you don't right now.
I pay taxes.
Well, she pays taxes.
Yeah, and so she's
But
got a
why is
right to question them too.
why
But they
is
have
she
a right to
different?
ask her that.
No,
Huh?
you're saying she's different. You're saying she can't, but you just said because you pay taxes, you got a right. Why does she not have a right?
She does have a right. She can put her kids where she wants, but she
Can
also
you-
has. But she also needs to be able to answer that question.
I disagree. If the justification and the reason for her not having her kid or choosing to put that child or what have you in a private school versus the public school, maybe it was because she was fearful of her child was going to be forced to be exposed to having kitty litter in a freaking bathroom of a kid thinking they're a damn cat or a
maybe
dog.
so. She should have answered it with that, or she should have answered the question with that. Maybe that may be true.
Well, now that I agree with.
I mean, and we
will
hadn't
say-
in full. I mean, obviously, y'all know watching. We have not played her answer yet, but I'm just saying the question on its merit. I think it was a gotcha question, of course, but on its merit, it's a fair question. She wants to be on the school board, but what is the reasoning why? And he could have framed it a little better. But what is the reasoning that you felt that you needed to put one of your children in private school?
Well, what did she have to say? So let's play what she had to say.
Yeah.
Personally, but it would take a long time. I think anytime that I do something out of character, you know that God is speaking to me. So whenever we did move Charlotte this last year to a different school, it was very out of character for Ryan and myself. We have a history of loving and supporting the Bossier Parish school system to the utmost of our ability. And it took multiple signs and multiple steps from God himself over a period of time for me to say, yes, God, I hear you in this. And the interesting thing leading up to this and thinking about that in this moment, sitting in this seat, I thought perhaps it's because I can be impartial and I won't have any bias with having a child within a school on this board. However, I will say I believe one of the strengths of the Bossier Parish school system and what you do excellently is you do retain your students. I don't know of many districts where private schools really cannot thrive or do very well. And for the most part, Bossier Parish, they do not. Because you have a history of excellence. You have 20 of your schools that have A and B, and the rest of them are making progress for the most part. You have programs that support the best and the brightest, and the programs that support those with special needs that a lot of the private schools are not able to have. So I feel like you're doing an amazing job at that. I feel like this exception is an exception.
Okay, stop it.
All right, so first of all, it took her a minute to get her thoughts, but she was having a conversation with them while she was gathering her thoughts and the points that she really wanted to drive home. And then she segued right into delivering those points. Ryan Gaddy, you definitely married up.
No doubt about it.
Good at responding to questions.
Ryan Gaddy, you should have took a back seat and you should have ran her. But look, I am going to be critical a little bit because, and if you'll scroll up in the comments, there is a comment that I wanted to go back to here regarding
Give me
this.
a keyword and I can find it.
Go 4 comments up. But she didn't go all the way with the question. Melanie Worley made the comment, and I can't read it now on the
says some children need more one-on-one instruction, and you can't get that in public schools.
Bingo. So obviously that's not something and I'm just saying the case, not all situations are the same. It would be wrong to put her, in the position to where she has to answer a question that she shouldn't be able to, and hat tip to her if that is the situation where, it's a subject matter that she can't talk about or for whatever reason she didn't make it seem an issue. She segued right through it all. But my point is, there are circumstances to where that would be an inappropriate question. And if the person or this board that asked that question, and I got to tell you, I would find it surprising that they didn't know the answer already to the question, that they asked the question anyway.
They probably did. But here, and again, we'll just agree to disagree on this. I don't, because I've been as critical of the school board, obviously, as anybody in years past. But again, I don't see it as an unfair question. He could have framed it differently. She did a masterful job on taking the question and literally creating her answer on the fly, and then turning it back around to both praise the school board and offer some critique of private schools. They should have put her on there just based on that answer and her ability to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I have said this all along. It's not a knock on public school teachers. It's not a knock at all. I think the most significant factor in kids in school and their education is the student-teacher ratio. Public schools, let's face it, the student-teacher ratio is like 30 plus to 1, right? Mm-hmm. Public schools, you're under 15 to 1. I mean, that's the way it is. At least the public schools that I'm aware of, that's the ratio. And when you start talking about what a teacher and how much time that a teacher can actually put towards working with the student, I mean, the span of control that a teacher has to be able to spend time with a student and teach them, when you're at a 30 to 1 ratio, there's no way they can have hands-on with students at a 30 to 1.
But you can't throw a blanket deal on that, because I went through public schools my entire life, generally had 20 plus, upwards of 30 people in class, generally made straight A's, and had plenty of teachers that I can name off the top of my head that I got hands-on instruction with. You can't just use that blanket label, because I'm literally walking proof of that.
What the hell you think your co-host is? I went to Halton. I mean, okay. It was 30 something plus. We had Harold Harlan.
Look where you are right now. You're on Bossier Watch.
We had Harold Harlan making us clean damn skull spit off of the concrete that people printed.
I would argue there needs to be more of that.
I would agree, but school today, you tell me, if these jackwagons on this board ordered a kid to go out there and freaking clean the skull spit off of the sidewalk, they would freaking shut down school for a month for a freaking investigation. It's all freaking, it is freaking all woke BS now.
That is the problem with the public school system, much more so than the student-to-teacher ratio. And I'm not saying everybody learns the same, blah, blah, blah. I get all that, understand it. All right. So we're having a lot of positive comments about Susan, and I think they're well justified. And I want to say, if you didn't see the comment, Duke, Weston says that explains a lot. You're from Houghton. Terry wants to know, why are we arguing this? Why not, Terry? It's Bossier Watch. It's 9:56. We've been going for almost, in 3 more minutes, we've been going for 3 hours, and we still have over north of 100 people watching us argue over this. Well, why not?
When somebody says that people in Bossier don't care about their community, this is proof that they do, because when there's 100 to 200 people that are staying in for 3 hours about crap that relates to their community, specifically the small little area of Bossier, that says something. I mean, It really does. That seems like a minuscule number, but it's not.
No, and because by tomorrow we'll be at, I don't know, 1,500, maybe 2,000 views by tomorrow evening. So, and we appreciate all of you. We appreciate y'all hanging in with us and asking the questions. And I want to address one thing. So Colonel Crockett said, wins the vote. Unfortunately, Colonel Crockett, this happened back on the 9th of January. As Duke pointed out, we were a little remiss in getting to this, but the vote had already happened. So anyway.
Yeah, they weren't going to appoint Miss Gaddy. The bottom line, I'm going to say this like it is. I'm going to jump ahead here, and we're going to skip some of the rest of this video and the timestamps that we have in there. We're going to get past this. And the board, I mean, look, let's face it. The Bossier Parish school system, we haven't put a lot of of our attention to it. That's the best word to say that.
Right.
We should put more to it, because look at this. You had a school superintendent put in place, and nobody put an application in. You had one person.
Yeah. Look,
how does that happen? Over a 6-figure public job that people put applications in, and you only have one person put an application in. That ought to tell you something. And for all of the majority of the board, and I know Dennis Bamberg and Shane Cheatham and Adam Bass, they're probably all throwing crap at their TVs right now. They're pissed off because we're talking about the school board. But look, I'm going to tell you, you got to know the secret handshake to get in this circle. It's a secret handshake thing. And Miss Gaddy, she didn't freaking know it. And if her last name wasn't Gaddy, she may have had a chance. But because her name is Gaddy, there wasn't no way in heck that was ever going to happen. And the bottom line is, let me finish. I'm almost finished, Rex. Bear with me, and I'm sorry. But the bottom line is this lady would have been probably the most consequential addition to your whole, enclave of anybody that you put up there. And the reason why is because last I checked, you got a bullying issue within your school that you deny and you don't address, that you obfuscate and you don't try to take care of business. This lady has a psychology background regarding this issue that probably could have helped you a little bit. But what? No.
Oh, she would have been one of the very few adults in that room had they selected her.
You completely dismissed her, and she never had a shot from the get-go.
Right.
Never had a shot.
The fix was in from the beginning with it. And there's a lot of different vectors we can go. I will challenge everyone to do this. You may not know, but go back to the very first video posted on the Bossier Watch Facebook page and see what it's about. Very first, before the first live show. Anyway.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to go back and check that out myself.
Yes, and see what it's about. It has to do with the precipitant that started the show, that started Bossier Watch. All right, anyway. Okay, so do we have some more of this that we want to play?
I think we'll wrap it up right there. And we're still clicking along above 100 folks. And I don't know. We've been at it 3 hours. We still got more content that we could go with.
More content, yeah. I hate to tell you, but my stomach is rumbling at this point.
But it doesn't eat dinner. It doesn't matter what you want. What matters is the devoted folks that are still sitting here waiting for us to jabber about other gossip within Bossier.
That is very true. That is very true.
Do they want more, or do they want us to tap out and call it a night? Oh, wait a minute. We're
testing the limits of the software.
I got one. Walk on water report. The weekly. We've got to report on Walk on Water this week.
Okay, so hold on here for a second. Let me click another button here. All right, so got to go back to live mode. All right, so
wait a minute. Melanie Worley, Rex and Rap. I got to tell you, I don't even know what that's about, and that's actually more interesting to me than Walk on Water.
Okay, so. Let me share this out. All right, hold on. Let me get to the right screen. See, I had it queued up. Okay. Now, look, I'm no rap fan, folks, really. I mean, back in the day with Run DMC and all that, maybe. I don't know I guess that was early rap or whatever, but it's not like I listen to rap all the time. But I will say this. I'm
So
sure
I
most.
guess you had something against LL Cool J or something.
Oh no, I
Right?
liked
Is that what
LL
you're
Cool J.
saying?
No, I liked it. All right. I
Okay.
liked LL Cool
Okay.
J. So that was back in the days when I wore Vans shoes and a skateboard, had a skateboard and all that kind of stuff. But I had a Powell Peralta, by the way, Excalibur model, which had a cool crystal skull with a crystal sword on the bottom of it. But that's another whole story. So
Are you talking some Dungeons and Dragons crap?
No, I'm
I
talking
don't-
about Rex used to be a skateboarder.
Oh, okay.
When I
okay,
was little,
okay.
younger,
I got
much
you.
younger. All right. So this is a rap song that has gone. It may still be. I know at one point it was at the top of the iTunes charts. They were at 8.5 million views. Now it's at nearly 9 million views. You can see it down there in the lower left. This Tom McDonald guy, he looks a little rough around the edges, but he does a lot of conservative rap. And he's apparently a pretty conservative person. Well, he got there was kind of the running joke with Ben Shapiro that they should get together and do a rap song. And because Ben has been very critical of rap music before and has really gotten on the rappers. And if you don't know who Ben Shapiro is, he's a Jewish very conservative commentator. He's also a very smart attorney, and he talks faster than anybody I've ever heard in my life. He says more in 5 sentences than most people can say in 10 minutes. All right.
All right. So bust a rhyme. Let's hear it.
So here we go. I'm going to cue this up to Ben's part.
Let's just keep it real facts. Don't care how you feel, man. If you want my pronouns, I'm the man who don't respect.
Let's look at the stats. I've got the facts. My money like Lizzo, my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm epic. Don't be a wap. Dog, it's a yarmulke, homie, no cap. Look at the graphs. Look at my charts. You're blowing money on strippers and cars. You going to prison, I'm on television. Dogs, no one knows who you are. Keep hating on me on the internet. My comment section all woke Karens. And I make racks off compound interest. Y'all live with your parents. Nikki, take some notes. I just did this for fun. All my people download this. Let's get a Billboard #1.
This ain't rap, this ain't money, cars and clothes.
Now, I'm going to stop it right there so it won't get cut off the stream. That is not AI. That is really Ben Shapiro slowing down his voice into rap mode and rapping.
I got to tell you, I'm sorry. That doesn't do nothing for me. It doesn't do nothing for me.
It's not that. That's not it. It's not that the rap song. It's the point that he is literally trolling all the left, trolling all the liberals, and trolling all the rap artists, and they went to #1, and he's never done it before in his life. That's the point, not the song. You're missing
I've
the
heard.
point.
I've heard. I don't get it. I still don't get it. I mean, I've heard rap. I know what rap is. I mean, I've heard the famous rap artists. But look, for me, I got to tell you, and I don't mean to flip your skirt here, but I got more entertainment out of Darth Jerkovich than I did that rap video. I thought that was funnier, more entertaining. I got to tell you, and I didn't agree with it.
Oh, you were really Emperor Palpatine, weren't you?
Look, I know
you were on the Emperor's side. In Empire
No.
Strikes Back, I can tell it already.
No, I gotta tell you, I was a Chewbacca guy. I mean, I think the Wookiees were the baddest thing there was.
Wow, you gotta get a pet cat. I think the cat's telling you it's time to go.
Something is going on up
Cat
in this
fight.
house.
Cat fight.
This is not good.
No such luck, Melanie Stevenson Worley. I am not
Something
busting a rhyme.
is happening up in this house here.
All right. I think it's time to exit the building on that one. Where did y'all get that kitten, Duke Lowry?
I have no idea, but it just climbed up in the middle of my lap in the middle of this 3-hour show.
Only on Bossier Watch do we have random kittens show up in the middle of the show. You saw it here first. All right.
All right. Don't forget, everybody, comment. Let us know.
Yes,
Vote,
cockroach of the week.
Yes.
We already had a few. Everybody else, put the word cockroach and your vote. Don't forget to do that because we need to have a selection to choose from for the show next Tuesday night, and we'll have the Ferrises on, so they get the distinction of being on while we do our first cockroach of the week in a long time. But we'll have them on with some interesting information, as always, and I don't know, whatever else we can find to talk about.
And we're going to be putting in a big request to everybody to start helping us out on pushing Louisiana Watch, because we got to segregate the state politics that's going on from the local. We got to start breaking that up and expand out. We're really getting squeezed. People appreciate what we are doing in Bossier, and they want us to kind of reach out into some of these other communities and start trying to help them get some movement, in their local politics like we're getting in Bossier. They're taking notice of everything that's happening over here, and there's no way any of what we're doing would be successful without y'all. And so we're going to ask y'all to help us help our neighbors. That's what it's about.
We
Term
have
limits.
some plans.
Term limits. Look, had people show up at the office today signing the term limits petition.
Yes.
1017 Bent Road, Acadiana Mortgage. We have a petition going by all of y'all. If you send somebody to, if you know people that live in Bossier City, direct them to come to the office, sign the petition, grab people in your car, start making them come. We would appreciate all the help we could get on that. It's looking like we're going to have to really kick that in gear and get it going.
Yeah, I got some ideas for a term limits podcast and video too. We'll talk about that some more. Yeah. Idea just popped into my head. So yeah.
Close us out, Rex.
I appreciate everybody watching. We appreciate everybody watching. Thanks for hanging out with us for over 3 hours. It's not quite our record, but not too far from it. As usual, if you got some email you want to send to us, make a free Proton Mail account. Don't put any identifying information on it. Send it to bossierwatch@protonmail.com. You can go by the website. We still have some hats there, blah, 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 and all that. If you want to donate, fine. If you don't, fine. We're going to be here doing this anyway. We have big plans. We'll discuss them some more as the shows go on. We're out of here, folks. See ya.